United States defined by its hatreds, not its loves, not its hopes, but by its hatreds. They hate all kinds of people, large groups of people, the deplorables, the bitter clingers, America's entire blue-collar population, the unfashionable people. They're hated by the people who run our country. But no one is hated more by them than a man called Alex Jones. Alex Jones is the single most censored man in all American history. He was the first media figure in our history to be completely erased in one day, deplatformed. Alex Jones was deplatformed before it was a common term. And not just deplatformed, sued, attacked. They attempted to criminally charge him. What did Alex Jones do wrong? Alex Jones didn't rape anybody. He didn't loot Macy's. He didn't burn a police station. He didn't invent a fake cryptocurrency and loot pension funds. He didn't start a pointless war that made this country poorer and more disorganized. He didn't open the southern border. No, Alex Jones had opinions that deeply rattled the people who run America. In fact, rattled a lot of us. And I'll just confess that I first heard of Alex Jones when he questioned the official story behind 9/11. And I, speaking for myself, was deeply offended by this. I didn't take any time to find out what he was saying, but I was bothered by the idea that this defining event in American history, which changed the life of everyone who lived here then, might not actually have unfolded as we were told it did. And that possibility was too destabilizing. And I remember feeling resentment toward Alex Jones for saying that. But several years later, I wound up in Austin, Texas, and through a chain of circumstances, wound up meeting Alex Jones. And I learned what everyone who has met him now knows, which is Alex Jones is not a crazy person. Alex Jones has said pretty far out things on TV from time to time. Not that far out. He hasn't said men can become women or Ukraine is a democracy, but within the bounds of, say, cable news, pretty far out. But fundamentally, Alex Jones is right about a lot of things. And in fact, that's why they don't like him. Alex Jones has an uncanny, really an amazing ability to predict events before they happen. He has called it, and he's done it on tape again and again, to the point where it's a meme on the internet. Alex Jones, prophet, not conspiracy nut, prophet. But when you dig into Alex Jones's predictions, they are so spot on that it's remarkable. How does he do this? We're guessing there's a kind of spiritual sensitivity to Alex Jones. Maybe that's his secret. He was displaying this years before the average person in this country even thought about matters like that. Now it's pretty obvious to most people that the current war going on in this country is taking place in ways you can't see it most of the time. But 10 years ago, people were not thinking that way. Alex Jones was. And so we thought it'd be interesting to sit down and talk to Alex Jones, the man. He joins us now in our studio. Alex Jones, thank you.
Wow, Tucker, it's great to be here. Amazing studios, amazing, I mean it, amazing people. And this is really going to be, I think, a historic interview. So thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really grateful to be able to do it. And it's one of the great blessings of my life and of my job is that I've been able to meet people that I've had preconceptions about and sometimes find those preconceptions bolstered and in other cases demolished. And you're definitely in the second category. So I want, for people who've made it this far, you know, the people who are in the country have really succeeded in making you disreputable. And the whole point, of course, is people won't listen to you. So we thought it'd be interesting to start with a series of on-tape predictions that you made, some of which are so precise and so prescient that it makes the hair on my arms stand up. And I'm being sincere, and our viewers are about to see what I'm talking about. Here is a list of things that you called ahead of time. But those 9/11 clips are crazy. I'm actually bothered by the precision of them. I'm not accusing you of being behind 9/11. But how could you, in July of 2001, call that? You said they're going to have airliners fly into the World Trade Center and they're going to blame a guy called Osama bin Laden. Now, leaving aside what actually happened, how could you have known that?
Well, in the longer clips, because it's a multi-hour show from July 25th, 2001, I specifically walked through all the reasons. And I knew that they were hyping up that we were about to be hit by Osama bin Laden. I knew that the World Trade Center had been attacked the first time and that the Feds had been involved helping cook the bomb and allowing it to go forward. And I just saw a lot of the pre-programming that was happening in the media, because they were on the news saying, you know, well, life's about to change in America. and I was reading what the RAND Corporation was saying and what the Pentagon was putting out. And I read the PNAC document from a year before, Rebuilding America's Defenses, that Dick Cheney had helped write. And it said we need a Pearl Harbor event on the American homeland to be able to bring in this police state and this control, and then expand the American empire worldwide. So hundreds of pieces of data went into that prediction.
But terrorists are going to hit the World Trade Center in July of 2001. I lived in the United States then. That was the last thing on my mind. And I lived in Washington. I know the guys who wrote the PNAC document because I shared an office with them. So I was more informed than the average person. And that was the last thing that crossed my mind in the summer of 2001. Like everyone else, I thought it was a Cessna. But how convinced were you that this was going to happen?
I was completely convinced. In fact, in the full clip that's online, you can find it on Twitter and other places, it has been removed. I explained to people that they need to call the White House and tell the White House, we know if you allow these attacks that you're basically allowing it to happen. And it was similar to all the data we had when I...
Well, you said that on your show?
On my show. And I gave the number out so people could actually call the White House. And then going back to October of last year, when the Russians went into Ukraine, I specifically said I think they'll go in by the end of February. And there was a lot of data that went into that. And then they specifically did go in on February 24th. And so I was able to make that prediction as well. But there was a lot of data and information that went into it.
Sure. I'm just, for the record, I miscalled that completely. I didn't think they were going to do it. You were right. I was wrong, not for the first time. But the 9/11 thing, I remember that really well. Nobody was thinking like that. So you called it in public on tape. Did the 9/11 Commission... So if I'm the FBI and I'm investigating 9/11, you're like the first guy I would call because you're the only person who said that out loud. Did they call you?
No, they didn't. But my most accurate prediction, going back over a decade, was when I read the Rockefeller Foundation Operation Lockstep, and they described using a virus to bring in world government, to bring in a world medical ID, that they would then build the social credit score off of, and that they would make people wear masks for fear, and that they would shut down sporting events and things like that, and basically phase in this new tyranny. So I was also able to specifically make that prediction over and over and over again because I was going off their own battle plans.
Are you the only person in media who actually reads these reports?
I don't think a lot of people do read them, but I do read them. I mean, I'm currently reading MIT reports from their top counsels, Pentagon reports. They have a working group called the Mad Scientist Group at the Pentagon that works with MIT. And if you go watch their hour-long, 2-hour-long, 3-hour-long meetings they have on YouTube with all the tops, I mean, we're talking hundreds of top scientists, they admit that they're building a post-human world, that soon everyone's going to be mind-controlled, that they're going to put smart dust in our food that they can electromagnetically control, and they just lay it all out right there. And I've learned what these people said in the 50s they would do were done by the 70s. What they said their plan was in the 70s for the 90s, they got done. And then when they had their Agenda 21 in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, the big UN summit, they described everything they would do up until the year 2000, and they got almost all of that done. And now they've got Agenda 2030, and we're going to ban your gas stoves, we're going to ban beef, we're going to ban single-family dwellings, we're going to ban private ownership of cars, and we're going to do all this, and now you see them rolling it all out. So I'm not really making predictions in these high-level World Economic Forum and other large think tank groups. They are laying out the future, and they're high priests of the World Economic Forum. That's a consortium of all these groups. Yuval Noah Harari, you can read his quotes. The future's not human. The human era is over. The public is useless. I mean, this is a very anti-human system. So that's how I'm able to make predictions, because they've given us a roadmap. They tell us where they want to take us. And so when the public wakes up, we push back on some of it, but they always come back. And so I'm just following the trajectory of where they say they want to take us. And there were a lot of white papers, not just the PNAC document from 2000, a year before 9/11, where they describe we really need big terror attacks. We really need Pearl Harbor events to get Americans to give up their rights. I mean, take what just happened in Israel. Totally tragic. My heart goes out to all that have been killed or lost loved ones or been injured. But there's no way that one of the best intelligence agencies in the world didn't know that was coming, the massive buildup the 5,000 missiles, the paragliding attacks, all of that. And so there was clearly a stand down there. And now the West will take more of the people's rights. Israel will be able to crack down and take more of their people's rights, which is a big debate over there. Hamas is being funded by Hezbollah, which is Iran. We just had Biden a month ago give $6 billion to Iran. And now the Mullahs are bragging that they were behind the attack, Hezbollah funding Hamas. So really, those aren't even predictions. It's clear that Hezbollah and Hamas have tens of thousands of men and women as sleeper cells that are, quote, other than Mexican, that the Border Patrol list every month, tens of thousands coming across the Texas and Arizona and California sectors. And it's an easy equation to predict that there's a wide probability that Hezbollah and Hamas at some point are going to attack sports stadiums, they're going to attack colleges, they're going to attack synagogues, they're going to shoot up mass gatherings if they're given the order by Iran, if we go to war with Iran. And then when this happens, our government won't get in trouble for dissolving the border and letting these people come in. Just like on 9/11, our government clearly had prior knowledge. There was clearly a major stand down that went on, and the government got more power, more control. And now they're not pointing the Homeland Security apparatus at the Russians like they did in the Cold War or the Islamists after 9/11. Now they admit that their main focus is Christian conservatives and the bitter clingers and the people that live in rural America, that quote, white people, I mean, it says that in the report, are the main terror threat. And so this whole apparatus of the war on terror has now been turned inwardly against the people, not just here, but also in Europe, where if someone criticizes transgenderism in the UK, they come to their house and arrest them. If a journalist does that, they come to their house and arrest them. If somebody says, I think these surveillance cameras should start getting cut down, they come to their house and they arrest them for their free speech. And so this is a global movement by the mega corporations, by the BlackRocks and the State Streets and the Vanguards that control 80+% of world wealth to control our behavior. And Larry Fink of BlackRock has said that at the Davos Group repeatedly. We're going to use our control over all this finance and this global social credit score we're rolling out to control people's behavior. So that's really what this is. And then they use the threat of global warming. They use the threat of a virus. They use the threat of radical Islam to take our rights. But we really are the target.
Even if by the way, none of that seems implausible at this point. I mean, just you're a measure of how the world has changed. If you'd said this to me 15 years ago, I'd have been like, someone's a crackpot and it's not me. And now after COVID, nothing you said seems crazy at all. I mean, you may be right, you may be wrong, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, obviously. But even if I disagree with what you just said, I would think that's pretty interesting. It's an interesting perspective. Why do you think, you've committed no crime, you'd be in jail if you had. Why do you think they hate you so much?
Because I do read their documents and I do read their books, and we were effectively getting a lot of people in the military and the intelligence agencies who were compartmentalized and who tuned into my show and saw my films and read my books and things. And they clicked with it and said, wow, I see all this going on around me. He's not lying about it. And then I would give them other pieces that I discovered or my other guests had discovered. And so it was giving them an operational awareness outside of their compartmentalization. And so we had massive success in the military, in the police, and in the intelligence agencies, not just here, but around the world. And so our penetration into those areas to help people expand their awareness that we're inside the government, inside corporations, was triggering a lot of whistleblowers, was triggering a lot of people not going along with the program. And so really my sin was decompartmentalization of the population.
When you got deplatformed, and to this day, no one has ever been more aggressively censored, I don't think, than you. I've apologized to you this in person before. I was in Labrador on a fishing trip and missed the entire thing. I was literally out of cell range. I didn't know what happened, but I got back and I read about it. I felt like it was a major moment in the history of the American media. I don't think anybody defended you when that happened. Anybody with any kind of audience.
For me, when Tim Cook admitted that he met on the weekend in August of 2017 with the other big tech heads, and they made the decision to curate, like it's a museum, and take me off. It was hundreds of platforms. I mean, it wasn't just all the big ones. It was everything from LinkedIn to our bank accounts being taken away to everything ensuing that week and over the next month. And I knew that I was a test case, and I wasn't taken off those platforms for any demonstrable reason. It was the questioning the school shooting thing that came later. They went and kind of dredged that up from my past, just questioning it a few times, blew that up after I'd been deplatformed, and said I was deplatformed for that. But if you check the record, I wasn't. And so once they deplatformed me, it made the show in ways only get bigger, with people actually going to Infowars.com and finding me on local radio stations and things. So then they panicked and said, okay, let's look at his record and create more of a reason that he's being taken off. So they took things out of context from 5-6 years before, blew them up as a current thing out of context, and deceptively reported on what I'd said to create a straw man argument to then facilitate the reason.
What's so crazy is if you asked just a cross-section of Americans who's responsible for the Sandy Hook massacre of kids at the school, no one remembers the name of the murderer.
Adam Lanza.
Okay, thank you. I didn't remember. Alex Jones. They effectively blamed you for a school shooting that you were not present at.
I have people come up to me in the parking lot. You can ask my security guy. He's been there when people walk up and go, "Why'd you kill those kids?" And then you go, "I didn't kill those kids." And they go, "Yeah, you did." And so that is what this has turned into. And this is bigger than me. I want people to understand something, that the mullahs in Iran and the Ayatollah are congratulating Hamas that just killed around 1,000 or more innocent Israelis, many of them women, children, disabled people, in a vicious, evil sneak attack. They are on there. Hezbollah and Hamas, mainly Hamas, but it's Hezbollah funding it out of Iran, are literally posting videos of them cutting people's heads off and killing children and massacring innocent people. They're allowed to have their Hezbollah accounts and their Hamas accounts. The Ayatollah is able to congratulate what these people have done, and I am still banned. And I'm not mad at Elon Musk. I understand I've been so demonized with the general public. He's barely able to keep Twitter going right now. I really appreciate what he's done. I admire him. I think he's done a lot of great work, and I see him moving in the right direction. So a lot of people attack Musk on Twitter. I trend all the time. Hey, if you're such an absolutist on free speech, bring back Alex Jones. I understand that if he did that, the ADL and others would really be able to probably shut down Twitter. So I understand that he needs to go through a process before he does that. So people get mad at Twitter for not.
Why the ADL? I'm not the world's expert on your career, but I know you. I've never heard you say a single anti-Semitic thing and an anti-Israel thing. Why would the ADL be against you? I don't think anyone's even called you an anti-Semite.
Well,
unless I'm missing something.
I mean, what goes on is the left forever called everybody a racist if you were just a conservative or pro-Second Amendment or pro-life or thought we ought to have a border. And that didn't work anymore to call people racist. And so the ADL gets all this big liberal donations. And so they go out and then police and take people's sponsors and target them just by the ADL calling up sponsors. Sponsors get scared and drop. And so that's what they've done to Elon Musk. They've been, they took over 50% of Twitter's North American and European advertising in just the last year, and bragged about it by saying he gives harbor to white supremacists, which he doesn't. But at the same time, white supremacists are ridiculous. They're goofy. Most of them are usually working for foundations and are basically actors. We're not supposed to say that, but there's many cases of that actually being the case, and that they're just LARPing that they're white supremacists. But let those clowns speak. Whatever happened to the ACLU that used to support the KKK marching through a town or publishing their own newspaper? I don't support the KKK. I think they're a joke. But if you take their rights, you've taken everybody's. But they're not even taking the rights of those people to post because they create fear and they get the ADL more funding. But if they can target an Alex Jones or an Elon Musk or a Tucker Carlson, then they're going after the real populist leaders that are bringing America together. And so what the left wants is to divide us all according to race, and to come out and say fundamentally with critical race theory that inherently being white is bad, and teaching 5-year-old white children they're inherently bad because they're white. That is wounding their brains and really creating racial division.
Why do people put up with that? I don't understand why. I mean, that's just, if you had told me 20 years ago, and I grew up in a world where judging people on the basis of their skin color was totally immoral, and I still believe that. But if you told me 20 years ago that we were going to live in a world where people get on TV and just be like, I hate white people, they're bad. No, it's totally fine. Like, why do people put up with that? Like, there should be zero tolerance for that. I don't get it.
The Democratic Party founded the KKK. And when the majority were whites in the South in some areas, they played the race card for political power. Now that the majority in most areas are not white, they're playing the good old-fashioned race card of tell whites, stand down, let people take over your society, your culture, give up your culture. It's embarrassing to be white. And then now it's flat out bad to be white. And the left's trying to convert all these minority groups that are now the majority in most areas into race-based systems, because that is a very effective system.
But why do people put up with that? I mean, like if they were doing that to Malaysians or Filipinos or Hondurans, I would say you can't do that. You're not allowed to attack people on the basis of their race. I'm sorry, not in a country like this, because the country will fall apart and it's immoral.
I totally agree.
But nobody says anything. Well, I don't get it.
The reason they've done it is most of the enforcers of this are white liberal women, 45 or older, not
fair.
It's just a fact. And they're cucked husbands. And so to them...
Can I just say that the phrase cucked husbands is the best?
It really is true. So if you get around these white liberals, they live in the whitest areas. They're totally scared of anybody with brown skin, but they virtue signal constantly and then say, yes, the white people are bad. The white people are evil. And, I've even seen white people sit up there and say, yeah, it's time to deal with these crackers. And they're a white person saying that. So
from Jackson Hole or Nantucket or Aspen or Bethesda, the whitest places in America. So shouldn't there be a law? It's super simple. If you've got a BLM sign in your yard, you should be required to live in Gary, Indiana or Baltimore. You should not be anywhere near Jackson, Wyoming.
You should be made to live in East St. Louis.
I totally agree.
You should be made to live in Detroit.
Yes.
But of course, they've done the studies, they've looked at the statistics. It's not just here, it's in Europe and it's in the UK, like in London. The liberal areas are like 99% white.
Oh, I noticed.
Okay, and there's a lot of rich people in London that aren't white, but they're not even in that area. They are the most insular group, and then they point at white Christian culture and society that actually outlawed slavery in most of the world, was the vanguard of stopping it. And then they don't point at China, which is the most homogeneous racist group in the world.
It's an ethno-state. It's Han Chinese, period.
Well, they teach, as you know on their news, that we are going to have Chinese superiority. We are the Chinese supremacist. Xi Jinping admires Hitler. He is literally following a race-based operation that is taking the world over, that owns the majority of Hollywood, that's paid off the Democratic Party. And if you look at all these anti-white shows that you see funded in Hollywood, almost all of it has majority literal communist Chinese government backing that is funding this. So it's real simple. China looks in and sees this diverse culture, and they say, we're going to use that to split the country up and balkanize it. And that's what they've done. And so communist China, along with the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL and all these groups, see America's weakness, and they're literally coming in saying white people are inherently bad because of the color of their skin. They inherently have cheated people. They've hurt people. White people invented racism. None of that's true. It's really just tribalism. And then they organize all these other groups into race-based groups to then unify them under the Democratic Party to attack who is left that tends to be more conservative, and that is some white people in this country. Though they're panicking because more and more blacks are voting Republican, more and more Hispanics are voting Republican. They're starting to figure this out. So now they're in panic mode to bring in totally disenfranchised third world populations who are refugees from the multi-year lockdowns in Africa, Latin America, and Asia and the Middle East. They then bring them to UN camps, brainwash them, then bring them to our border, brainwash them more, then send them into the United States, and then literally hold them for years at facilities while they're indoctrinated to be this new political underclass that's then going to be turned loose on America. And that's why you see Democrats giving illegal aliens the right to vote in their cities, giving them driver's license. That's why you see them passing laws. They can be police officers. So they are importing a new enforcement class against the American people, and they're setting it up along racial lines, not us. They're making it racial, just like Hitler made what he did racial. So it's the left and the think tanks and the communist Chinese that look at the U.S. and have seen our weakness as race, and they are exacerbating it.
So I don't understand. So you're from Texas. You grew up in Texas. Your family's been there a long time. Texas is changing really fast. It's dirty, for one thing, I notice, because physically dirty, garbage on the side of the road. I never have seen that in Texas before. So your governor could have stopped that. He commands the Texas National Guard, and he didn't. And I feel like that makes him a traitor to the country, but what am I missing?
Well, I mean, Governor Abbott is, on a scale of 1 to 10, the best kind of Republican governor is a 10, and the worst is, say, a 1. And like the Illinois so-called Republican, that's really a Democrat. I would put Greg Abbott as about a 5. The state is overwhelmed. There isn't really a state mechanism. It's federal to kick people back and deport them. So they have put up barbed wire. They have tried to stop people. They have tried, but then they have to hand them over to the feds who release them.
But why not just say the feds are committing a crime? They're committing a crime. This is not allowed under laws passed by the Congress. In a democracy, the Congress passed laws. And so you've got criminals running the country. The Biden administration is criminal, which is true. And we're not playing along. And like, if you don't like it, come do something about it. Meanwhile, every able-bodied man with a black rifle assemble at the border, and we're just going to stop this and save the country. I don't understand. Like, that's not hard. What am I missing?
No, I think you're absolutely right. In fact, what the deep state fears would be a coalition of good governors, good attorney generals, giving them the findings and the rulings that they could indeed do that, and then declaring emergencies in the states and having a coalition of the states come in and do this, and then instruct local police and everybody else to not have sanctuary cities. But the problem is, if you're in Texas, every single city, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, are Democrat Party run. And so Texas is almost purple because the California influx and all the other refugees from New York, many of them bring their leftist ideology with them, even though they're fleeing it. Like locusts, they fly to the next field. And so that's really the issue, is that the legislature is somewhat cucked, to use that word again. And I think the governor has been cucked. He certainly went along with lockdowns and masks more than really any other Republican governor. And so I do think Greg Abbott needs to do a better job. But I also wanted to list some of the things that the state is up against. But I'll say this. Austin fired a bunch of police and another third quit. Crime everywhere, homeless everywhere, trash everywhere, ruin the city like everywhere else they are.
You live there?
Absolutely. That's where my family's from. I've been there since high school. But I'm gonna have to leave soon because it's gotten more and more like Los Angeles every day. It's very sad to see it. People fleeing LA, like my friend Joe Rogan, it seems great to him because he went from a really, really bad situation into a bad situation. But if you've been there, you can see the decline. You can see how fast it is, and it's really, 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 really sad. And there are just illegal aliens everywhere, and refugees from the rest of the country all over the place. And you see really the economic decline of most of the mom and pop businesses and things. So the same rot we've seen all over the country. Austin was supposedly this big mecca and it was going to be so great. And now sadly it's falling apart. I mean, Tucker, you know the answer to all this. You do the best job of anybody with a true Americana populist breakdown. The ruling elites of the world, the Black Rocks, the State Streets, they're on record saying they don't want our consumer society. They don't want our capitalist society. It's bad, it's ugly, it's gross. But they're the biggest consumers compared to anybody else in the world. Their quote carbon footprints are thousands of times bigger than the average person. Leonardo DiCaprio or Klaus Schwab literally have carbon footprints thousands of times bigger than the average poor working American, that they're telling you can't have a car or air conditioning. Remember, before Obama left office, he traveled to Latin America, to Africa, and the Middle East. And what did he tell them in speeches? The clips are famous. You can't have a car or air conditioning. The earth will overheat and burn up. While he's telling people that by the year 2017, like Al Gore said, we would have areas flooded on the coastal areas, while he bought a big house in Martha's Vineyard at 1 foot above sea level. And of course, it's still there and it hasn't flooded. I mean, his chef died there, drowned sadly, but no flooding inside the house, just the dead chef. So they're waging war against civilization and society to make us poor, to put us under siege, and to cut off our energy, make the cost of living impossible, to break our old system, to bring in something even worse. And that's the Cloward and Piven strategy that the Democratic Party has adopted. They've done the same thing in Europe. This is a plan. The central banks have unlimited money, but they can't buy all the infrastructure up because people aren't selling. So they've got to crush us and make people so poor that everybody's forced to sell their business, their intellectual property, their physical property, but more importantly, to turn over our bodies to them. We're a UN treaty that Biden right now is, that's what I call Biden, is Biden is trying to ratify, would literally put our bodies under the control of the United Nations and our medical care policy under it. So
it's the pandemic
treaty.
Yeah.
So what this is really a breaking of our will, a demoralization. That's what the transgenderism is, and 2 men can have a baby, and puberty blockers, and castrating little boys, and cutting little girls' breasts off. They've got such hellish stuff coming in this designed global collapse to bring in their world government that they've got to just have all these horrors out there, hoping we just throw up our hands and run off to the countryside, which everybody's doing, and in a way that's good. But at the same time, then they've got full control.
That's totally right.
And they're going to march out of the countryside next and dig us out.
So that's, I mean, you look at the White House press secretary, who can barely speak English, who's one of the stupidest people I've ever seen, and a transparent liar. You wouldn't hire her to run your copy machine. She's the White House press secretary. Why would you do that? And it's not because of her race or who she sleeps with. I think the whole point is she's so obviously repulsive that it makes you feel bad about the country to see her.
I mean, that's it. We're at a beautiful ball. It's prom night. Everybody's dressed great. There's wonderful food, big, delicious punch bowl. And then they say, what can we do? Well, just have Brian Stelter go take a dump right in that.
Yeah.
And then he's there laughing at you. They're all there laughing at you to make you feel small, to make you question reality. Why is everything so ugly? I mean, that's why they tell people, hey, you can be homeless anywhere. You can crap on the street, needles, throw your garbage everywhere. Drug dealers can sell you drugs. We're going to give the homeless all this government funding. Liberal groups come in and farm and milk each homeless person and skim a big cut of the money off the top. It's a crop. But then a cash crop. But then we see that and we think it's all over. There's nothing we can do to demoralize us and make us give up. And even though I'm conscious of this, even though I know this, it's still at a DNA level. I'm like, I got to go to the country. I got to get out of here. I've got to separate myself from this. But then when they release this toxic, cultural, poisonous gas, they push us out of those areas and they get the main infrastructure to then organize that, cut off the food and supplies to that group they have, and then tell them the reason you're doing bad is not BlackRock and the WF and Bill Gates. It's all those evil people in the countryside. They're all white supremacists and terrorists and racists. Let's go get them. Because the last group they don't control is rural people that are self-sufficient. And so I get going to the countryside, protecting your children. That's the holy grail. The problem is you got to have 1 foot in each. You got to go back and fight in the city for the infrastructure, for the government. You got to give people hope while also building a backup operation with farming and ranching and self-sufficiency. So that's why the WEF and the UN are coming in Ireland and in areas of Asia and in the Netherlands and saying by 2030, 80% of your cows have got to be dead. And they just banned like 30% this year in the Netherlands. And it didn't matter people were 80% against it in polls. It didn't matter. They sent the military in against the peaceful farmers that were just protesting, just like the peaceful truckers in Canada got brutally attacked. And so they're all WEF globalist alumni that the big banks on record brag. They've penetrated the cabinets, to quote Klaus Schwab. They've put their operatives in to cut off our energy, demoralize us, release the hardened criminals, put the political activists in prison, continue to cut off the resources to make an angrier world. Klaus Schwab says, we're going to make the world collapse. We're going to have everybody turn against each other. We're going to blame the political classes that we own and control. And then when we're done, we'll bring in our new solution. But first, they have to demolish the cultures and societies that we had before with the fentanyl, with the open borders, with the demoralization, and then they bring in their next phase, which is a high-tech, cashless society, robot, drone-controlled nightmare. More than half of the U.S. in their official UN maps that they've had for more than 25 years, that are some of my first films, show half the U.S. off limits to humans. All cars will have to have GPS. Everybody by law will have to have a cell phone at all times. Australia just did this last year, tried to push it through. And that's the admitted global UN standardized plan where you don't leave your house without a cell phone. Every car is robot kill switch, GPS controlled. California is moving to ban all the quote classic cars. That's any car that doesn't have a digital ignition. And they admit it's for control. So if people think things are bad now, the straitjacket, the ball and chain is going on. It's all being militarily run. Our military is great men and women, but at the top, our military has been globalist, trained, New World Order people for at least 30, 40 years. They've got almost every general, every person under their control. And that's why it came out in the UK and Europe and also here in Canada. You pull up the headlines. Defense Department purposely scared public into lockdowns, masking, and taking inoculations. UK headline, British Ministry of Defense secretly brainwashed and terrorized public. Canada, same headline. They even let you know, oh, the military is here to do this. And now, oh, the CIA and Justice Department is there to help surveil the public to stop disinformation. And it turned out, of course, almost all that disinformation was true.
Always.
About everything. So we have to understand, our governments have been seized. The big corporations want to get rid of the American idea. You got 50 acres and your house and a business and a farm, and you can take care of your family, and you're independent. They have to destroy all that because the rest of the world aspires to that. Instead, they want 15-minute cities, central bank digital currencies. They want all of these systems that track and trace everything you do in the social credit scores. And the plan for the rest of the public, we're talking 99%, is 250 square foot coffin apartments, 5G bathing you in them, literally eating bug protein. And I told people 10 years ago they're going to push bugs on the public because I read it in their white papers. Now it's already in grocery stores all over the U.S., all over Europe. They're putting the cricket meal into the food, very toxic.
Undisclosed, yeah.
It's got chitin in it. Yeah, they'll just give it a number. It's got like a code. And you ask again, why would you do that? Because it's all about breaking our will. They don't want people to aspire to open, free societies. Yeah, there's a lot of waste, there's decadence, there's issues, but there's freedom. They want to train us to live on carbon rationing, food rationing, a very dystopic world. You'll own nothing, you'll have nothing, and you'll be happy. Now, these are quotes.
I have to say, I bet there are, I don't know how long into this we are, 30 minutes or something. I bet there are a lot of people watching who are thinking, holy smokes, I can't believe I'm agreeing with Alex Jones. I'm supposed to hate this guy. Like, where's the lie in what you just said? I'm not sucking up. I'm sincere. Like, I'm listening to this, and even myself, I'm thinking, I can't believe I'm nodding along to Alex Jones and being like, you're absolutely right. Like, where are you wrong?
Well, I just hope people realize that we're all under the gun. So many of these leftists believe that because they go along with this, they're going to be given powerful positions in this system. This is a technocracy. There's almost no managers in this. Almost nobody has power in this system except a very small group of technocrats who happen to be transhumanist. And you said something really astute a few weeks ago in a speech you gave, and you've also talked about on your show, that all of this stems from their fear and denial of death.
So one of the things I find so striking about you, having watched you on and off over the years, and this must be a burden for you personally, but your ability to see people at a deeper level or to see things in them that are not obvious to the rest of us. And I want to give a specific example. So there's a guy called Brian Stelter who had the media show on CNN. I first met Brian Stelter when he was a high school student or a first-year college student because he would hang around the show I worked on at the time at CNN. This was 20 years ago at least. And I always thought he was awkward and weird and probably had a super creepy personal life, but I never took him seriously. There's a pretty famous clip, and I want to play it right now, of you critiquing Brian Stelter, and you take him way more seriously than I ever did, and I think you're right to. So this is a pretty famous clip of you on Brian Stelter.
Hell on earth. Right back. You understand that? You understand that, Stelter?
I've only watched that several hundred times, and I laugh every time, but I also, there's something to, if Brian Stelter had absolute power, would you and your family survive? Of course not. You wouldn't. You'd be, of course not, and neither would mine. So there's a lot that's true about what you said. How did you perceive that? The rest of us just made fun of him.
Now, once they started the censorship and deplatforming, remember back then they would deny it. Oh yeah, we're taking people off air, but it's not censorship. Now they admit, no, it's censorship. We're doing this for your own good. So he was really the face of that, and he was working for the head of CNN that was really in charge of it. It later came out. CNN currently is not in charge. They've handed it completely over to the Justice Department to quarterback, as Congress reported a few months ago with the documents. But at the time, Brian Stelter and his mini-me Oliver Darcy,
His Popeye to
were going around calling up and harassing my sponsors, taking sponsors away. And they were going around and organizing big tech to take not just myself, but many other people offline. And so he was destroying our free speech. He was taking our sponsors.
But it's crazy. I just want to restate. You are not promoting race hatred. You're against race hatred. You never have promoted that, ever. You're not promoting violence. You've never called for violence. And you've never even called for breaking the law.
And so that's why there's so much anger there, because I remember the day I did that and a few other clips that went viral. I showed all the stuff he was doing, but then the media attacked me and just clicked it out of context. But still, it reverberated with people because people were sick of the corporate legacy media. So people say, well, why is he so angry? Well, it's because he's literally trying to take us off air, literally taking our sponsors. I mean, the equivalent of the Vikings 1,000 years ago in England pulling up and burning a village down. And so there he is, all sweet and liberal and cackling and laughing, but he's really an agent of anti-American totalitarianism. And so he was the front man of that. And I wanted to just simply say,
well, you're right.
I see you. I know what you're doing. So people see it out of context and think, why are you being so mean to him? Well, I mean, he's literally trying to destroy my free speech, take me off air, and put my family on the street. So I'm pissed off at him.
What's interesting is, and I mean, I don't know if you want me to reveal this, but we had dinner in our barn last night and there were some drinks. And after dinner, you and my producer called Stelter on the phone. And what was so, and it was on speaker, so I listened to it. What was so interesting was, you know, you've been very clear in a very direct, pretty masculine way, I would say, about how you feel about Brian Stelter. There's not a lot of confusion about your views on Stelter after clips like that, which doubtless he's seen because he Googles himself compulsively. He was very kind of syrupy sweet with you.
And that's why I was sarcastic and told him I want to date him.
You did, yeah. In fact, the exact line that you had was, Brian, I'm not usually gay, but I want you.
Yeah.
And he seemed a little bit, I'm not saying he's open to it or whatever, but he wasn't shocked by it.
And he's like, give me your phone number. I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And then he hit your producer up. Please give me his number right now. Let's
that
talk.
was interesting.
But I was being silly with him. But there was also a line. He goes, oh, Alex Jones. I said, I want you to come on my show. And he said, oh, you still got a show? And I went, no, you're the one that doesn't have a show.
Sorry, I shouldn't.
Tell him the other line.
It's so boorish to like recount conversations people weren't witness to.
It was funny though.
But you said, you know, you're off TV now, but you were a real star. I mean, not on CNN, but on my show. So good. Anyway, but what was interesting was if someone had talked about you that way and then called you late night after a couple drinks, you'd say, you know, up yours, pal. You know what I mean? Like buzz off, or I'm not taking your call. But he kind of sucked up to you. That's a very weird, passive-aggressive posture.
Well, I've said a lot of really mean things about him and attacked him. And when I watch the clips out of context, I feel guilty. But he was going around with Oliver Darcy. They would brag on Twitter and literally hitting hundreds of my sponsors. And I say hundreds, I'd have like 20. They'd take them all. I get 20 more, take them all. This went on for years. So you go get a sponsor, you get them, they're doing great. He takes it away from you. And then he brags that him and Dart, I was taken off Twitter, not for the Sandy Hook stuff that came later that they focused on. Look it up. They had the former head of Twitter and the lawyer on Joe Rogan about 4 years ago. And Joe said, why did you ban Alex Jones? The lawyer goes, okay, let me open my clipboard. She goes, here's why. He was mean to Oliver Darcy. So I'm at the Capitol. They're having censorship hearings. Sundar Pichai's there. I just confronted him in the hall.
Who runs Google.
And you guys are welcome to use that if you want. And then that was at the Senate. So now they were going over to a House meeting, and there's Oliver Darcy in the line. He gets to get in. I don't even get into a hearing where they then attacked me. They'd attacked me at the last hearing, but I don't get to face my accuser. And so I get in his face. I don't threaten him, but I say, you are an evil man. You're un-American, coming after my free speech, harassing my sponsors, trying to get me off the internet. And the last place I was on was Twitter. They'd held out. And so Jack Dorsey had held out. And so Jack Dorsey admitted, well, the last straw was I bullied Oliver Darcy. And so that's why I was deplatformed. Elon Musk thinks it was the Sandy Hook thing. And notice.
Do you know that in most cultures, bullying Oliver Darcy would be like a rite of passage? Like you couldn't, like that would be a positive good, right?
Well, but here's the thing. He's literally on Twitter taking my sponsors, calling for me to be silenced. So he's been attacking me, attacking my speech and my living. And then all I do is shove a camera in his face while he's waiting to go into the hearing for 5 minutes and say, man, you are un-American. You got some evil eyes. And I said, you really look like a piece of slime. I mean, I told him that. And
fair.
And so The point is, he's a man. He's a, quote, journalist in the arena. He goes around harassing people and stalking them financially and their free speech. He'd already bragged that he'd gotten me taken off all this other stuff and that he was instrumental, which he was. And then he can't take me saying, man, you're a jerk.
Right.
So
this is the classic posture. Stop hitting me, he says, as he, fires a gun through your windshield.
Exactly. They can dish it out, but they can't take it.
So what's the effect on you? And I don't mean even the lawsuits against you, and there was an effort to criminally indict you, I guess, just for having bad opinions or whatever.
A bunch of them, actually.
A bunch of them, yeah.
They've had 4 grand juries I've had to respond to, subpoenas. My lawyers,
when you've committed no crime, you're like one of the only people in media who's not ginning up race hatred, I would say, just to be totally clear, because it's very common to do that. You don't do that. So anyway, and then, of course, this $1 billion judgment against you for having naughty opinions, which is insane. I'm not even talking about that. I just mean, what's it like to spend 25, 30 years connecting the dots and seeing this slow-moving storm come toward the country that you were born in? What effect does that have on you?
Since you use the analogy of a storm, it'd be like if I was 100 years ago before they had radar, and I've read about the famous flood 120-something years ago in Galveston that killed tens of thousands of people.
Oh, yeah, the hurricane, yeah.
Yeah, the hurricane. They didn't know. They didn't have radar. And so they didn't know, but they're the fishermen out there catching shrimp or whatever. And then all of a sudden, here comes basically a tidal wave. And if I was one of those fishermen and I knew my children and my wife were on shore at school or work or whatever, and here comes a 40, 50-foot wave I know is about to kill them, I would not be thinking about myself watching this giant wave come in. I'd go, oh my God, my wife and kids are over there. And so it's not that I'm a hero. It's not even a selflessness. I realized that I was just out in front and ahead of some people in understanding this because of family and research and just things in my life that I saw that encouraged me to get involved in the media because I was aware of the globalists and some things that were going on because my uncle was high-level Iran-Contra, had some other family that worked in clandestine things. So I kind of grew up just around folks that knew what was really going on. And you're a kid, you don't really pay attention to it, but you kind of get that education, even though you don't know you're getting it. And so I've just been out front. So I would liken it to the old days when a dam would break and they didn't have radio to warn people, and the dam breaks and it's 20-foot wave coming down the valley, and you are down below the dam as let's say a lumberjack, and your wife and children are 2 miles down, and you see the dam break and you're about to drown. But I guarantee the last thought you're thinking is it's going to get my women and children. And that's really my grief. Is this is really draconian. This globalist Great Reset, New World Order takeover is a post-industrial world, cut off the resources, 90% forced depopulation, breaking civilization by design, massive wars, famine. They've already cut off 1/3 of the fertilizer in the last year worldwide. It's estimated that'll kill a couple 100 million people. The lockdowns worldwide, not the virus, the UN admits killed 80-something million extra people in the last 3.5 years. And so when the first world collapses, the third world dies. And then what's left of them floods us. And so the earth is being put into a countdown collapse right now. And so I'm like the fisherman when the tidal wave comes in, and I'm like, oh my God, my wife and children are about to die. And so I'm not really worried about me because I'm a man. I did this. I knew it was coming. I've been proven right. And I'm not happy I was proven right. I wish we could have gotten ahead of this and stopped it. Yeah, we have a lot of credibility now that people see that we were right, so maybe we can stop the next phase of it. But the globalists have gone from testing phase, beta test phase, into full operational now. And they say, read their writings, we are going to have a post-industrial world by 2030. We will have no personal cars by 2030. You will be eating bugs by 2030. And we will start the depopulation of 90% of the people by 2045. That is the official WF, official UN, official Club of Rome plan.
What do you mean the depopulation?
They want to bring the world population down to 500 million.
But I thought we were opposed to genocide. No or no? I guess we're not.
Well, we're told now, don't have children, it's bad for the earth. And we're told all this, and Elon Musk is right and is a hero for pointing out all the actuaries show, if you don't have 2.1 children, a man and a woman, people go, well, a man and a woman can have 2.1. It's in the aggregate, folks, out of billions. If a country doesn't have 2.1, 2.2 replacement rate, then you don't have people to take care of the old folks, society collapses. And so Japan's 1.3, Italy's 1.3, they're done as cultures. America, without immigrant influx, is about 1.6. That's not viable. And I'm not just talking about white people only here, but white people are 7% of the world population, maybe 8. And so I would be sad if the last of the Eskimos were dying. I mean, I'm sad that the Japanese, within 100 years, there might be 20 million of them.
But just to my previous question about, and without getting too personal, but like, I mean, I feel a little bit enervated and down just hearing your dot connecting here. Like, what's the effect on you over 25 years? I mean, if you literally foresee 9/11 before it happens, and you did, and it can be proven, we just proved it. Like, what's that like to live with that weird ability?
Well, I mean, I know a specific clip. I specifically say, call the White House, tell them we know they're going to let Al Qaeda attack us, Bin Laden, and then take our rights. And I said, call the White House. I put the number out, so I put my money where my mouth was, and that's the only time I ever said call the White House and tell them stop a particular event. I'm now saying we need to call the White House and say, you've let tens of thousands of military-aged men from the Middle East in. We know a lot of them are Hezbollah and Hamas. The FBI has confirmed that. And so when and if there's big terror attacks, which I believe will probably happen in America, we're not going to have Homeland Security get more funds and more power and grope us at the airports more. I want prison time for the agencies and groups that have allowed this. And I want Biden. I want Biden impeached now. Okay? That's why we got rid of McCarthy. It needs to happen. Leaving the border open when there is a clear and present danger of this going on, and when we're very close to war with Iran, we go to war with Iran, they're going to activate Hezbollah, okay? And that they make Hamas look like choir boys. And so you want to hear a prediction here, it's a probability, not a pure prediction. But I mean, if we go to war with Iran, guaranteed sleeper cells activate. It'll make what happened in Israel look tame in comparison. I'm not lessening what happened there. So I'm simply, and then again, where's the logic? The government that allows that to happen should go to prison.
I agree.
But instead, like 9/11, they're going to get more power when it happens. Mark my words. So
you can't have guns because we let in foreign sleeper cells to kill you.
Exactly. And you asked the question. This has really taken a toll on me. Not the fake lawsuits, not the weaponization, not the deplatforming. I was already getting exhausted 5-6 years ago. And when I married my second wife, who's amazing, I have 3 children with my previous wife, and one they're all great children, and one with her. We were in Hawaii getting married like 7 years ago. And I said to her, I want to just write books and make documentary films and maybe do an occasional podcast. At that time, I've been on air like 22 years, 6 days a week, 3 hours a day at least. And I said, I just don't want this burden, this big crew. I love the crew, but I don't want to do this anymore. I said, I want to move the country, and I want to because it's taking a physical toll to every day look at the stuff. And now I've gotten to the point, which even though I say don't let them break your will, don't let them demoralize you, that's because I understand the process. It's happened to me. Used to, I'd have hundreds of incredible stories and clips every day. I couldn't wait to expose the bad guys. Now I look at it once, I'm ready, I study it, and then half the time I get on air, and I just go, let's just take calls, or I start talking about some fun story just because I mentally cannot sit there and stare into the abyss and stare at Biden or their press secretary that's meant to enrage us and demoralize us. And I think that's a defense mechanism that's healthy. So I think we all have to be balanced. I'm not asking people to only fight tyranny. I'm asking people to get prepared, get ready, but wake up as many people as you can, and then do whatever you have to stay sane, because we have record suicide, we have record depression, we have record drug abuse. This country has been attacked. And if you read deeper into the globalist writings, they admit they're doing it. And so we have to be aware of it. If you're aware of an attack and aware of a manipulation, it doesn't give you full immunity from it.
No, it doesn't.
But it gives you a buffer. Imagine people that don't know what's going on, and they really believe things are dangerous, things are bad, not because of the corrupt corporations that are running things, but because those evil people in the countryside don't want to be left alone. That's what they're saying on the news. It's the people in the middle of nowhere that want to be left alone. They're the bad guys, and it's the 5-year-old kid that's white. They're really bad. They're all inherently really bad, and just this is a demonic assault, and it really is good versus evil. But the key part you raised earlier in previous shows that I mentioned that I didn't get into because there's so many topics is this: when you said we need to brood on death, you talk about a simpatico or a synchronicity or a weird moment. I don't usually watch your show when it first releases one day because I'm usually at work or doing stuff till night. But I'll get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, hours before my wife and daughter get up, and I will start, get on the desktop, start doing research. And when I'm reading news and sending stuff to the crew for the show, I'll almost always go click on your show to watch it. And that's the go-to thing I'll have on the background. And I said, well, I'm not going to click on the show. I'm going to click on the speech you gave a few weeks ago, and you talked about brooding on death. And I'm sitting there that week literally thinking about the fact that we've got to be humble, we've got to be thankful, we've got to realize that there's an infinite universe and consciousness, and that focusing on what made humanity, focusing on the fact that we are spiritual beings, but that this life is finite, and these incredible experiences, all the people we've met and known, and all the ancestors before us that did incredible things and went through hell and were tough as nails to get us here, really ties us into our ancestors and the epigenetic instinctive knowledge that really makes us a colony or hybrid creature of all of our ancestors. We have a soul, we have a spirit, we have our genetic imprint that they've proven mathematically is multidimensional, even above the third dimension. So we have a personal spirit, but really we also have a collective bodysuit that is a collection of all of our ancestors, and just the beauty and the wonderment and the spectacularness of that, dwelling on how incredible that is, but also leaning into eternity and leaning in to this body and this incarnation. And I'm not saying reincarnation, incarnation, but being so magical, and that also that death is the great equalizer, and that you will be humbled and you will get old and your teeth will fall out and your hair will fall out and you will get cancer or you will have a heart attack. And no matter how powerful you are, you're not in control. In that, it tunes you into God. And then what you said, so I'm heavily focused on this and telling my wife this, and I'm meeting with my dad, who's really my mom, and I don't see them as much as I should, but my dad's really always told me this, and I didn't really get it when I was younger. Now I get it, as I get older. And I'm sitting there just literally praying that morning and drinking coffee and just focusing on death and just focusing on life, because when you focus on death, it makes life so much bigger. And focusing on what I'm not a Hindu and I'm not a Sikh, but the Sikhs are like a 500-year-old version of 3,000-year-old Hinduism. And they think everything's a manifestation of God in the universe around us, and then interfacing and how we take every moment of how magic it is what's going to resonate in the future to bring us close to God, so that we basically resonate into the higher dimension with God. And that's really been my instinctive understanding of it, spiritual understanding, the dream understanding of it, that I didn't read in books, and I read what the Sikhs are saying. It's basically, I was reading some of their writings just a month ago, and it was about focusing on death, so you also understand life, and being humble and being a servant, and how that's what empowers you, so you're not an asshole. Like your dad would tell you, focus on the fact that I'm an asshole and shouldn't be, because we all have the asshole side.
Yes.
You have a better quote, but of your dad's quote's
the
actually
root
better.
of all wisdom is knowing what an asshole you are.
And it really is. My dad always says the root of all thing is being humble and appreciating things and not getting on a power trip. Basically, what your dad's saying.
Yeah.
And so, because that's wise men, and so I'm sitting there totally focused for like, I wouldn't call it meditation, for like 30 minutes, just sitting there in the dark with the computer screen on. And I go, no, I'm not going to watch Tucker's show from yesterday. I'm going to watch this speech. And I click it, and I'm like 10 minutes in, and you go, we got to say everything I'm saying. I hadn't even said this on air. I'm hearing you say basically the same thing, because it's a universal truth. Then I want to bring the next piece to it, which you talked about. You grew up in this super wealthy area of California when you weren't, spending your summers here in Maine. And speaking for you, I watch the show all the time and read your material. It's beautiful. And you were talking about how they're totally freaked out and neurotic and crazy because no one talks about death. Everybody shelves away the old people. They basically put them out on an ice float or burn them like the Vikings. And that by doing that, that's what makes them not be connected to reason and God and the deeper things. And that's why they're so lost. That's totally true. So let me now take you one step further in this. The globalists are so scared of death. They have all this money, all this power, all this control. So they're obsessed with finding life extension technology, merging with machines, becoming gods. That's their new religion. That's the transhumanism. And that's where all their funding goes. But that's only one side of the coin. The other side is that if you're going to be God, you've got to be in charge of death. So because they fear death and they project their hatred of themselves onto us, then if they can poison us, dumb us down, sterilize us, depopulate us, they believe that's more for them at a very greedy level. So they want to be death, the destroyer of worlds. To quote Oppenheimer, I become death, destroyer of worlds, and at the same time cheat death. So it's a total subconscious obsession with death instead of consciously focusing on it, getting over it. Instead, they turn it loose to their animal, lower alligator brain and are now manifesting all this because they've not embraced the higher level of understanding.
I agree with that completely. But it's doomed as a project, no? I mean, it is the Tower of Babel. Whenever you see in history is the story of this, people drunk on their own power, overstating their control over things, becoming convinced they're God, and then being destroyed. I mean, that is just, I mean, it is just an endless loop of that story.
It's a law of humans.
It's a law, exactly.
And
so this can't, I mean, this isn't going to work. They're going to blow up the world before they do this. There's just not possible.
You just stole my thunder because we've not talked before this. We've talked about a lot of stuff, but nothing about the show really. It's a law, just like gravity, just like 2 + 2 = 4. It is the fabric of the universe. And I was about to say, in the past, megalomaniacs would try to control everything. Order the firstborn, killed. Almost every kingdom would do that, whether it was Egypt or the Druids. Oh, there's too many young men being born, kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, depopulation's always been there. In the time of Plato, 2,500 years ago, he thought the world was overpopulated. So that's kind of where the eugenics comes from and where they get these ideas. The greatest philosopher ever, who said a lot of great things, but also said there's too many Greeks. We need to kill most of them. They're animals. They're dumb. We need to control breeding. It only makes supermen. And that's where Hitler got all that. That's where all this comes from. But the central issue here is, in the past, civilizations would just fall apart when they got into a decadent phase. Hard men make good times. Hard men make good times. Good times make soft men. Soft men make bad times.
Exactly.
And so instead of going through that cycle and the collapse of that corrupt system, now there's biological weapons, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, all this other advanced stuff. Instead, they're going to try to use the robots and all the control and the nuclear weapons to make us finally get under their mark of the beast, finally get under their unified system of control, finally get under their social credit score, which was predicted by these incredibly connected people 2,000 years ago, that this would be the ultimate tyranny that was coming, almost psychically seeing it into the future because of the great evil potential. Time's really a loop. It was looping back or bouncing back. Real psychics seeing into the future what was going to happen in Revelation as a potential, I believe, and it's actually a warning that we don't have to follow that course. And that's my own personal belief. So instead, whether you believe in Revelation or not, the evil globalists, the selfish globalists, are using it as a blueprint and literally building the mark of the beast cashless society, where you don't just, I agree to take this mark, I can buy and sell now. You have to worship the beast that can be seen by all on earth at the same time. It describes these big holograms you've got to watch and worship. And it tells you what to do. And it tells you how to live. And it says men become women and women become men and children are set upon their parents. And there's nothing but wickedness being invented. And it describes everything that's now happening and says when they roll this out, you've got to worship this world government. You've got to worship this system and do exactly what it says, or it doesn't let you buy and sell. And so whether people believe in the Bible or not, believe in Revelation or not, it is now manifesting.
I don't see a lie in that. I don't think, I am a Christian, but I don't think you need to be one to arrive at exactly the same conclusion. So you live in Austin, Texas. You've been there since high school. Austin's changed a lot. And as you noted, it's been really overwhelmed by people from the West Coast fleeing the decayed societies that they built. You live among liberals now. What do you make of them? What are they like?
I really feel sorry for them because compared to, say, my dad's dad,
yeah,
like you were telling me about your foreman or your manager knows how to do electricity, knows how to build houses, knows how to fish, hunt. We just saw that big moose he got today.
Yeah.
These guys are impressive, and they can do everything. My grandfather could do everything. He could fix a combine with literally rubber bands and tin cans. He cut up into pieces. And my dad's the same way. I'm a shadow of them and their can do. And compared to liberals, I'm like light years ahead of them. They live in high rises. They get food delivered to them. They're not in reality. They don't have common sense. They go out the most dangerous areas that I wouldn't go into armed in places like New York, dangerous areas of Austin, and get stabbed, raped, murdered, killed. Then they defend the people, their families do, that killed them. They just are like pod people. They are just these obsolete creatures that most of them have, I guess, jobs because they work for big tech or the system. But they are just completely disconnected, domesticated, very, very politically ignorant, culturally ignorant, historically ignorant people. And they think they're elitist. They think they know a lot. They think they understand a lot.
They're totally useless. What do they do for fun?
Well, I was about to say, and they're the ones that want to depopulate. They're the ones that think that, like Bloomberg said, oh, what's a farmer do? It's easy. You stick a seed in the ground, it grows. Farming's incredibly hard. You better know what you're doing, and you got to have the weather on your side. And it's a all around the clock job. I've had family that are farmers. My dad grew up as a farmer and a rancher. In the summers, they would send me to work on farms and ranches. Best education I ever got. It's rough. It's tough.
But is it really essential? Is food really essential?
Well, we're told by John Kerry in the last few months, he says we need to cut farming. Now, organic farming
is he still alive?
Is
John
bad
Kerry?
for the earth. I don't think I think it's a corpse.
He seems like a corpse.
Like a rubber face.
Somebody
an animatronic Chuck E. Cheese.
I thought he passed years ago, but somebody told me he's still alive. I guess it's an open question.
He runs around giving speeches saying we've got to cut farming or people are going to starve. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. That's what I'm saying. Cut down trees, cut the food off, cut the fertilizer off to save people.
Well, speaking of starving, I mean, again, as I said at the outset, and I meant this, I've never seen a single person, I don't think there ever has been a person in the history of the United States who was not criminally charged, but was punished to the extent that you have been. I mean, they've really tried to drive you into the grave.
I think, to be fair, it's been worse for Trump, but I'm the second.
Yeah, that might be right. He has much bigger resources, though, to back him up.
Oh, absolutely.
He's the head of a political party.
I've spent everything. I'm completely out of money. I'm still hanging on. But yeah, Trump still has resources. I don't. I mean, they lied about my resources, too. Said I had all this resources. Now it's been proven it wasn't true. So yeah, they've definitely.
But it was more than $1 billion judgment against you for saying something other people didn't like, I guess.
Well, let's be clear. Misrepresenting what I said, I was defaulted by both judges in Texas and Connecticut. And the judge said I was guilty, then wouldn't let us put on a defense and had a jury decide the damages. Then they put on experts saying I was worth $400 million when I had a couple $1 million last year in my account during the last trial. Now I have nothing. I'm actually upside down right now. And so that's.
So how are you? I mean, they've decided like you're not allowed to make a living in this country. You've been not just deplatformed, but depersoned, debanked. How do you make a living?
Well, I have been maxed out personally. I'm in bankruptcy, but I've done a Chapter 11, Subchapter 5 reorganization for Free Speech Systems, that is the company that owns InfoWars, and so that company's barely paying its bills and is operating, but we're barely hanging on. I personally never had that much stuff, contrary to what they said, so it really hasn't hurt me that much. I'm not really into fancy things or a bunch of ostentatious lifestyle, contrary to what they've said. And so we're funding the operation. We're selling products.
What are you selling?
We sell books, films, T-shirts. We sell high quality supplements. Then they call it snake oil, but we sell the same stuff private labeled that Whole Foods sells, just high end, high quality stuff. It's not just a fundraiser. I've got the book, The Great Awakening, Defeating the Globalist and Launching the Next Great Renaissance. My last book that came out last year was a #1 bestseller on the USA Today and Wall Street Journal, but.
Did they list it on their list?
Well, the New York Times, they did. New York Times refused to even put it on the list, even though it was #1. This is my new book that isn't just the bad stuff they're doing with a huge breakdown with all the proof at the back. It is also solutions and how to counter them. So this book will keep us on air. Plus, it's a great book. I hope people get it at InfoWarsStore.com. Or they can also get signed copies there, or they can go to Amazon.com. But this is a way to keep us on air. Plus, it really is an amazing book. If people want to see a lot of the stuff I told you, but with footnotes, so you can go right to it, everything I say. When I say Naval Noah Harari says the future's not human, and that the population is no longer needed, and the future's, there'll be no more humans, you can actually go to where he said it. When I said that Jeffrey Epstein was running a Mossad/CIA MI6 operation to blackmail top scientists to control them. We have links to that. When I say Peter Nygaard, that's on trial right now, was having women have babies, his babies, so they could abort them at 8 months, and then he could suck all their juices out and inject them into himself, a real vampire that literally takes the juices of his children, puts them in his body. We have a transcript of him saying that on TV.
Who is this?
Peter Nygaard is one of the big buddies of Epstein and all them. He was kind of running his own Jeffrey Epstein operation, also in the Caribbean. So, I mean, this book is super, super hardcore. It's got an amazing foreword by Steve Bannon, and they had a great researcher, who's also a lawyer, Kent Heckenlively, went through and double-checked everything I said for the book, obviously, so they wouldn't get sued. So this thing is well-researched, well-documented. It is the Great Awakening, because the Great Awakening is the counter to the globalist Great Reset, to destroy society and then build back better.
But it seems asymmetrical at best. I mean, you have all the power on the globe arrayed on one side, and then the majority that doesn't like it. So, I mean, like, how do decent people prevail?
They believe they can push it by deception. That's why people are aware of why they're cutting off the fertilizer to collapse the third world, to then flood us with those giant populations they will then control and give voting rights to. And if you don't want to give them voting rights, then you're a racist. See, that's why the lockdown's biggest crime wasn't just the 80 plus million the UN estimates starved to death the last 3.5 years, on top of the normal 15 million they starve to death each year. You look this up. They then use those giant masses of people that are fleeing total collapse as their new political underclass. So that's why it's so vital to not just challenge the Great Reset and the New World Order eugenics operation of the transhumanists. It's vital to then give an alternative plan and have an alternative debate about that plan. And that's what the Great Awakening gets into.
So, but if you give up on that, you also sell bourbon.
Man, you are really being nice here today, Tucker. And
well, you know why? I hate selling products, but I like this product because I love the name.
Look at this right here. This, my friends, is a gift to your crew, because I know they drink. I had some drinks with them last night when we called Brian Stelter. But this,
some of the crew does drink. Yes, that's true.
So this is for you. We got a few other bottles for you out there. Suddenly I can't even open this thing. This thing was sealed. Maybe it got locked on the airplane. Anyways, can somebody open this? I'm like here embarrassing.
No, hold on. I think the center thing. I don't travel with guns very often, so I don't know how to operate these.
I'm gonna smash this son of a bitch open.
Watch yourself.
There we go.
Son of a bitch. All right, goddammit. Look at that. It doesn't come like this in stores. I'm gonna kill the people that came up with this.
Swap that into the studio. We're rolling.
Tucker, don't kill me.
All right, we're rolling.
I don't
Phil.
think that plug should be that. Oh my God. I got a lot of points when you get to here.
Okay, that was amazing. This whiskey does not come with a hatchet to open it, or a black light. But does it come with a black light?
No, but if you have one.
But if you have a black light, by the way, I don't think I've ever sold a product on the air, but I'm proud to say
we
it.
appreciate you supporting us.
Dude, come on, I'm totally all about it. What does that say? I'm going to let you read that.
It says, thus to tyrants, meaning death to tyrants.
Yeah, I recognize that phrase. I think it was uttered in Ford's Theater.
Thank you, brother. Well, enough of that. I didn't mean to turn it to Who's
So
Extravaganza.
I want to...
The book is more important, but... Anyways.
So the last topic I want to hit with you, I could go on for hours. We're trying to get the audience of this social media app to believe that you can have longer content, because it was, originally designed for very short, brain droppings. But
Well, I think you've succeeded. The biggest English-speaking show ever. I mean, it's bigger than Jimmy Carson, bigger than Joe Rogan. Congratulations, showing that freedom is successful and
well,
popular.
thank you. Well, we're grateful that it's a.
No, I'm grateful to you. You keep
that
saying
we have
that.
free speech. But but here's my question. So, all of the trends that you describe, I think very credibly, and I'm a little bit surprised, but not at all ashamed to say I agree with pretty much everything that you've said. Amazingly, but I do. And I think most reasonable people, if they just drop the kind of filter and stop lying to themselves and ask, like, where's the lie and what he's saying, I think would come to the same conclusion. But all of those trends are being forced to kind of ahead, or they're going to come to fruition, or something's going to happen in the next 13 months, because we have a presidential election on the books, and you have this car crash, and I just do not see how it's resolved. Do you? Like, what's going to happen?
Again, it's the truth. Really, the only show I watch every day is yours when you have a new show, because I don't just agree with you. I learn stuff every time. And what you've been saying the last few months is dead on, and a lot of people agree with you, and I know I do, that you look at the trajectory of this, how they're escalating on Trump, whether you love him or hate him. He's now a populist icon. He's now the underdog. The globalists are coming after him. They're coming after our right to vote for who we want. He gets 60% against
which is the fundamental right in a democracy. The people rule. I can vote for whomever I want. And if you don't like that person, that's immaterial.
Absolutely.
Right?
And he's been indicted for saying they're stealing elections. They're stealing it.
Oh, I'm aware.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
In their indictments of him is
Absolutely.
election theft, but yes.
But despite that, he's got 60% against all other Republicans. He's 15, 20 points ahead of Biden. It's backfired, but the deep state's not going to stop. So when you said to Trump several times in that 400 million views or whatever you got, biggest show ever, you said to him, well, isn't the next thing them trying to kill you? And he's so confident he doesn't want to think about that. And
he doesn't want to think about it.
Whereas I admire someone that's that confident. The deep state does kill people, and that's their only next move because this is failing. And I think they're going to kill Biden too, or I think they're going to try to. What you said in the speech again before the last one I talked about like a month ago, you said, I don't see Biden and Trump being the candidates. You see the system, the media going after Biden, and he deserves it, but they were covering it up until now. Now they're covering the laptop. Now they're covering attack on the dog. Now they're covering, all of his senility, all the corruption, the Chinese spies.
Attacking a dog. What a pig he is. I'm sorry.
Well, I was told that by Secret Service and by people that, let's just say, work with them. And I'm going to leave it at that. But I actually have a contact for you. I'd like to be able to hear it from them. But when this is over, I'll let you actually hear it from yourself. I think they'll tell you off record. I think they're willing to talk to you. But yeah, he is completely out of his mind. He wanders around for the entire 2.5 years. It's getting worse. Naked in the White House. In the middle of the night, doesn't know who he is. They have to give him a bunch of drugs, a bunch of amphetamines in the morning. Then they've got to drug him at night. Sometimes he'll like be out for the morning for a while and then comes back out at night for a ball. That's when there's a real problem.
He is on drugs. I have established that. And I know someone who witnessed it. I'm not guessing at this. I know someone personally who witnessed him taking amphetamines. And this was during the 2020 election.
So how's this going to, that's huge. I know you don't play games. You've been proven.
No, I don't play games with this. I'll just say he's a makeup artist.
Well, no, you said the NSA spying on me, high level, and then a month later they went, yes, we're spying on Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I know.
So you don't make stuff up. And so what I'm saying here is Biden's a liability for him. Trump's a liability. What do? They have a right winger, they'll claim, assassinate Biden, and they'll have a left winger assassinate Trump. That then gets the country even in more of a fight against each other. And then they put in Gavin Newsom and somebody like Mike Pence or who knows. But I really think the next 13 months is the most critical time, not just in American history, but world history. Because if they can bring down America, they're going to bring down the world. And then you've got the escalation. Remember a year ago, Biden said, you can't give F-16s and Abrams tanks and cruise missiles to the Ukrainians. That's World War III. Now they're doing it. So as Russia wins that war, as Colonel McGregor documented a few months ago with you, NATO is escalating. Well, that leads right to nuclear war. So we're so close. And that fundamentally makes me so mad. This transcends politics. Since when do Democrats love war? Since when do Democrats love the intelligence agencies? They love them now. And so really the Democratic,
so dark.
Just like the Republican Party is a beachhead for sanity and populism. It's not perfect, but it's a beachhead. The Democratic Party is totally turned over to evil. That's why I thought RFK Jr. was so refreshing, but they're shutting him out of the primary process. They're blocking him. And so now he's going to run third party, which will take away from Trump. Most experts agree. I know Trump's people have looked at it. They think so.
Of course.
So that's very, very sad.
So do you think, normally at this, so we're in October, I guess, in the year before the election, you can sort of see the outlines pretty clear. In October of 1999, I was pretty confident it was going to be George W. Bush versus Al Gore. You sort of know ahead of time, but do you think that we're going to see on Election Day 2024 a ballot with Biden and Trump on it?
I've been saying I think they may assassinate him or claim they had a heart attack. But I was thinking about each one individually. But I think when you said that a month ago, it was prescient that's the next move. If I get in their mind and I'm evil, I'm Machiavelli, that is what they have to do.
But the election just forces the point. I guess I actually don't think that their preference is overt violence or anything that people notice. They much rather resort to stealth, right? Covert rather than overt. But I just think, there's an election on the books and like something's going to happen.
Well, that's what you're saying. All their tactics of covert aren't working. So as we saw with JFK in 1963 in Dallas, they will go over. And so we have governors declaring emergencies to take the guns. All of that is, and suddenly Democrats are against sanctuary cities when they're the ones saying, Governor Hochul and the mayor of New York, come here, come here. Now they're like, oh, we never said come here. I think it's dawning on Democrats they've been betrayed. And maybe there's some point where Democrats will have self-preservation, the average voter, and say, no, we need to turn against this. This is totalitarian. This is dangerous. This is evil. But if that isn't the case, but here's the problem. Even if Democrats wake up, the system will know that from their internal polls. The establishment will, and they're going to make a big move. And is that a full-out war with Russia? A full-out war with China? Is it them allowing the jihadi sleeper cells? They're in America that have poured across our border, that are waiting to let them activate. And I'm not saying our government controls them, but they've let other governments bring them in. And they've given funding to those governments. And now if we don't see strong signals against Iran, I don't want war with Iran. What I'm saying is strong signals telling Iran, do not fund terror groups, and we don't see strong repudiation of Joe Biden, that will greenlight the security services to go ahead and let this new attack happen. And a massive jihadi attack in America could be the way to bring in martial law and cancel the election. Also, Klaus Schwab loves the Telegraph, so does the UN. It is imminent. A cyber attack bringing down the power grid will make COVID look like absolutely nothing, is basically his quote. I think I've got it almost exactly. And so will they cut the power before the election? I mean, the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. So people need to be vigilant and understand that we want to let the system know we're aware. We want to promote the values of free speech and of family and of self-defense and of local control and of free market, rugged individualism and a competitive civilization and a colorblind society that Martin Luther King Jr. talked about. We need to go back to the things that made us great, that threaten the CCP and threaten the globalists of the UN, because they're selling tyranny and eating bugs and being locked down in your houses and forced injections and two men can have a baby. We're selling normal human biology and success and culture. And so I just think we have to give the alternate plan to their dystopia. We have to challenge their dystopia, but also give the alternate plan, which enough people aren't doing. But that's Trump's big sin, is his optimism. America's great. Everybody's beautiful. We have such potential. And as soon as the world heard America was open for business, we saw trillions flood instantly in, because our leaders had said America's not open for business. Invest in China and India and Mexico, where the globalists have middleman deals to get all the money and all the power, instead of the people getting it. It was Henry Ford, wasn't a perfect guy, but he said the other auto manufacturers, this came out in federal documents and later antitrust suits, because he didn't get in trouble, they did. They said to him, the other auto manufacturers, they said, why are you going to pay your employees 3 times what we do? And he said, because I don't want just rich people buying my cars. I want my employees to prime the market to buy it. They'll give me all the money back buying the Model T, and then that'll supercharge it. So that's the two different systems. Build this illustrious, incredibly exciting, roaring civilization of laissez-faire, or let these big guys that already made all the money centralize control, shut us all down and vertically integrate so they're in control, and then kill competition. So we have to kill the globalist program that's anti-free market, anti-capitalist. It's monopolistic. It's anti-human. It's a bunch of degenerate, inbred, 3rd, 4th generation elites who didn't make all this money, who didn't create all this stuff, but that have decided we don't even get to take part in it, while they take part in it and live like kings. So it's us or them, Tucker, and we've got to crush the globalists. We've got to crush the New World Order. We've got to challenge them, or they're going to destroy the planet.
I believe that. Last question. Where will you be in 5 years? Are you going to stay in this country? Can you stay in this country? I mean, speaking of escalation, again, I still have never figured out what your crime is, but you have been persecuted for something in an escalating way.
I got 2 subpoenas last week.
Subpoenas?
I got subpoenas on January 6th, again, in a criminal investigation.
Well, you didn't do anything on January 6th.
And I got subpoenaed in Trump's criminal trial in Georgia.
On what ground? On what?
And then my lawyer called and said, what is this? And they said, well, we don't just want him as a witness, he's a subject. I had nothing to do with Georgia. I'm not saying it's bad they went and challenged it. That's their right. I mean, I went and protested there. So it's just pure intimidation. So I have a problem. It's that I don't like to cut and run. I'm not the toughest guy around, but growing up in Dallas was some pretty rough people. Some big guy started to fight with me. I just couldn't back off. And I almost always won those fights or went to the hospital trying. And so I decided to go down with the ship. I'm not going to leave the country. I'm not going to back down, and I'm going to continue to fight with everything I've got. I'll never sell out. I'll never give in. I could give out. That's why support's critical and word of mouth, because Alex Jones is seen as a focal point, like capture the flag by the globalists. If they can shut me down, they believe they can shut anybody down. They've said that. And so it's human intelligence and human action and word of mouth. Talking about Infowars.com, my show, what I do, is a test case, almost like Stalingrad in World War II, where all these forces of the globalists keep thinking we beat this guy at this city, at this point, at this battle, we win. And so I don't think I'm even that important. I've just been chosen as this main battle point. So all these grassroots people and people like you and other great folks are supporting me through just supporting the First Amendment. And so I've got that backing, and that enrages the globalists. So the more they throw against me, the more support I get. And it's really become a historic battle. If I'm completely manned and debanked and shut down and can't operate, only then would I try to evacuate somewhere to try to keep my show on the air. But I've looked at it, and I don't even think that that's the case. Once they disrupt and shut down something, it's very hard to restart it. The good news is there are so many other great talk show hosts, so many other great people that now understand this and even have perspectives better than mine, that I'm not obsolete yet. But thanks to you, and thanks to Russell Brand, they're trying to now set up. And, Joe Rogan's come a long way, and Steve Bannon, and countless other shows that I tune into that have high-level understanding and teach me a lot. And my head's in the game. So you're our champion, Tucker. And there are other people, lesser. I know you don't want to be the top dog, but you are. That's why you're under attack. Thanks to you, I know no matter what happens to me, men and women are going to continue the fight forward into the future. But this is an Alamo situation. I'm not evacuating. I'm not leaving. I'm not going.
How'd they do at the Alamo? Do you remember?
Everybody got killed.
Oh, okay.
But that example led to a big, my mom's family raised Colonel Travis's son. And on my dad's side, too, they were heavily involved. First Texas families, we have like Mexican land grants for our property. We still have Mexican land we paid for, 12 cents an acre, like 1825 in East Texas. You come visit. So it's not as cool as your place, but it's pretty cool. And the last letter he wrote on that piece of wallpaper was to one of my great-great-great-great-grandfathers in Gonzales, Texas, saying, please take care of my little boy. But Travis knew he was going to die, but he was like, I got 10,000 troops coming in on our 200 and something. We're going to give them one hell of a fight and kill a bunch of them before they can get up north for the main battle. And they killed thousands, 3,000, it's estimated, we go from memory, Mexican troops. And so that'd be an honor to have like 10,000 troops coming at me, and I'm in the Alamo. I don't have a death wish, but man, it gets me high as a kite. and so I'm not doing what Colonel Travis did. The only reason they got beat is they ran out of ammo, basically. They had powder, but no more ball. And they were fighting with swords at the end. So those are tough men, and I don't even measure up to them. But I want to try to measure up. And so it's very exciting. It's instinctive. It's spiritual to be defending humanity and prosperity and freedom and justice against these globalist child trafficking monsters, the open border, all this evil. I mean, so my cells tell me to do this. My guts, my sinews say you're ordered to do this. And I don't feel good unless I do it. And so the bigger the attacks get, it's the old World War II saying, when the planes were over the target, they didn't really have radar, but they knew the bases and the factories had flak. So they're shooting at them with artillery, anti-aircraft artillery, so you flew into that. And so the best place I want to be is in the flak, but I also hate the flak because we could blow up and we're not in the fight anymore. So there's that paradox, but 90% of me wants to be in the flak, 10% says maybe you should steer a little around it because you don't want to get knocked out. And until just a few years ago, I felt really bad because it didn't seem the paradigm had been shattered and people didn't actually read the globalist documents. Now there's been a paradigm shattering and I'm almost obsolete, Tucker. And as soon as that happens, as soon as I see another couple hundred more prominent people that actually know what's going on, we've already reached a chain reaction point, I'm going to hang it up and disappear like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Alex Jones. Thank you. What a great conversation.
Thank you, brother.
I really appreciate
T-shirt which you brought out at
Paris Fashion Week.
Yeah.
Why did you do that, and what did it mean?
You know, I do certain things from a feeling. I just channel the energy. It just feels right. It's using a gut instinct, a connection with God, and just brilliance. You know, like as if you asked like Tanya Harding how she did the triple flip or the triple spin. Yeah. She was in so much practice that when it was time for her to skate in a competitive format, it just happened. Like it happened outside of practice. It happened in the real format, and that's what's happening. Is God is like preparing us for the real battles. And we are in a battle with the media. Like the majority of the media has a godless agenda, and the jokes in that work, and this whole like, oh yeah, he's crazy, and all these things, they don't work because the media has, you know, they've also watched travesties happen, just even specifically to me, and just watch it and act like it wasn't happening, and they stay quiet about it.
What have they?
I want to answer the white. Yeah. I feel like someone caught what I was saying, the comparison to Tanya Harding about the White Lives Matter. You know, my dad is an educated ex-Black Panther, and he put a text to me today. He said, "White Lives Matter, ha 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 ha," and I said, I thought the shirt was a funny shirt. I thought the idea of me wearing it was funny, and I said, "Dad, what do you think it was funny?" He said, just a Black man stating the obvious.
Yeah.
And, you know, my dad doesn't listen to rap music, and he's like super educated. We opened up a water distribution center in the Dominican Republic together. He's like the original Steve Jobs, but he was getting blocked every which way with all of his ideas, and he didn't have an endless bank account, and he didn't have an Instagram. So all these ideas, he had to like take them back and compress them. Like my dad is the most brilliant person that I know, and we actually have a strained relationship because I was taken from him, because my mom was an actress, so she was a liberal, and my dad would see certain things and say, you know, we should do it this way, we should do it that way, and the people got around my mom and pulled her away, much like, you know, Kim is a Christian, but she has people who want her to go to Interview magazine and put her ass out while she's a 40-something-year-old multi-billionaire with 4 Black children. And this is how fashion wants to, how they want to present her. So I know you give these questions, and I give you like these 3-part answers. Is this a cool format for you?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, cool.
And I am following it.
All right.
So you said that your father said when he saw the shirt "White Lives Matter," it's great to see a Black man stating the obvious. So, by which I think you meant that's obviously true.
Yeah, that's my favorite response, because I kept on thinking, like, you know, people, they're looking for an explanation, and people say, well, as an artist, you don't have to give an explanation, but as a leader, you do.
Yes, I think that's right.
So the answer to why I wrote "White Lives Matter" on a shirt is because they do. It's the obvious thing.
Yeah. Why do you think that's so, and I assume the implication is, of course, all lives matter because they're lives, because God created them.
Yeah.
Why do you think that would be considered controversial?
Because the same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be Black and the vernacular that we're supposed to have. My dad grew up as a military brat, and his family moved around, but they were based mostly in Delaware. And at the time, if they weren't the only Black family, they were one of the few. And he would be discriminated against because he was Black. So by the time he got into college, he would be discriminated against. He went to a Black college. would be discriminated against because they said he talked too white.
Yes.
And then he played the kick drum in the band. So when he would go to the club and the music was playing, where would he clap his hands? Where the kick drum is.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite of where everyone else
Right,
was clapping their hands. And this is the most elegant and tasteful person that I know. And when my mom, when the schools suggested like the herding systems, because what they do is take the black community and they separate us, and they separate the families, and the educated, they push this, need for higher education, and us as blacks, we discriminate against each other and say, well, I got my PhD and you don't have your PhD, so I'm better than you. And so my mom, she had a PhD, and she was influenced to move to the south side of Chicago and take this job at Chicago State University. And she told my dad, if you come for us, you'll never see him again. Because, the media ridiculed me for getting the house next door to Kim to see my children. And they even said that I was stalking her and her new boyfriend because I bought the house next door to see my children. And that's how I knew that my mom had said that to him. I said, Dad, they moved us to one of the most agreed upon to be one of the most dangerous places in the world. It's almost like they tried to kill me or something. I said, Dad, why'd you never come to get us? And that's when he told me that she was told that. There's so many things that are put in Kim's head. They bring influencers, like no one ever knew where Corey Gamble came from. No one in the fashion world knows where Gabby came from. These people were practically made in a laboratory, in my opinion. And one of the things that they're really good at doing is being nice and being likable. And what they do is, for people that have some form of influence, whether it's an educated black woman like my mother that became the head of the English department at Chicago State University, or whether it's the most influential white woman on the planet, being my ex-wife, they have people that are around them at all times telling them what to be afraid of. It's like not what to do or say specifically, it's what to be afraid of. And if you have a person that isn't afraid of them, like a Russell Brand or Candace Owens,
right.
It's not that we have to agree with this, but
they're not afraid.
They're not afraid to state what their opinion is.
Yes.
No one is God, and everyone has an opinion.
So a conversation like this is a window into a world that you don't see. So if you're familiar with West from the media, you think of him as an individual man. What you don't think about is that he is at the center of a battle, and people like him are at the center of a battle to get a message out, mouthed by the lips of influencers like him and so many others, that extends a storyline on behalf of, well, in this case, the status quo. So there are a lot of people vying to make certain that people like him say the right things, and the consequences for not doing that are very severe. So for him to come out and say all lives matter, obviously, is a huge threat to a lot of people. Who are those people exactly? Well, we asked him, and he told us. That's next. If the average person goes on social media and expresses unapproved thoughts, it's a problem for the people in charge. And if you keep doing it, they will silence you, and that has happened to countless people. We've interviewed a lot of them on this show. But if you were to have, say, 18 million followers on Instagram and express unapproved thoughts, that wouldn't just be a problem for the people in charge. It would be a flat-out emergency. You are not reading the script, and you might lead others astray. You're an apostate. You are dangerous. You're a witch. And that's effectively where the artist formerly known as Kanye West, now called Ye West, finds himself tonight. He will not be controlled. In fact, in one of the most poignant moments in our exchange, which we'll show you in a moment, he was shocked to discover that after becoming one of the most successful and richest people in the country, he still wasn't free to say what he thought. And that changed his life, that realization. More of our conversation with West now.
There's a group mob. It's like liberal Nazis that will go up and attack you. Like I said, you know, everyone's like, Anna Wintour's your friend. I'm like, this Gabby girl and Gigi and these people, they would have never said anything negative unless they got the okay from Condé Nast, unless they got the okay from Anna. They would have never got the okay to comment. Like, let's just talk about specifically.
So these are people who were attacking you for your T-shirt.
Well, it was a setup. It started off as, them having this black girl comment and say, well, I felt traumatized when I saw this T-shirt. It's like this, a black girl saying, I felt traumatized when I saw a black man wearing something that he wasn't allowed to wear. It's like in Django when Jamie Foxx is on top of a horse and Samuel Jackson's like, you know, that black guy's not supposed to be on top of the horse. Okay. And then I went and said, hey, I don't like your boots. I know Anna Wintour doesn't like your boots and you're not a fashion person. And then people started to say I was a bully, but it was a setup. And they finally got it, right? Because I eliminated the BLM officer at Adidas. And then I got out of the Gap deal. And just one by one, I've been winning these battles, right? And they thought they had me. They had the idea that Ye was bullying, what I think the liberal term is a body goals black woman. Now let's talk about Gabby and my good friend Lizzo. Lizzo works with my trainer, a friend of mine, Harley Pasternak. When Lizzo loses 10 pounds and announces it, the bots, that's a term for people like, it's like telemarketer callers, like on Instagram, they attack her for losing weight because the media wants to put out a perception that being overweight is the new goal when it's actually unhealthy. Yes. Let's get aside the fact of whether it's fashion and Vogue, which it's not. Let's just, or if someone thinks it's attractive, to each his own. It's actually clinically unhealthy. And for people to promote that, it's demonic. You know.
What, can I ask? Yeah. I've noticed this also.
Yeah.
Why do you think they would want to promote unhealthiness among the population?
It's a genocide of the black race. They want to kill us in any way they can. Planned Parenthood was made by Margaret Sanger, a known eugenics, with the KKK, and I believe that if we saw ourselves as a people and not a race, then we would treat our people better. Like if you go to a Jewish person and you say a race, it almost gets confusing. They'll cut you off quickly and say, we're not a race, we're a people. Well, our people are supposed to just say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Okay, well, what about, do you own the land that you're living in? Do you own, is the contract even in a language that's even possibly understandable?
Right.
You know, for your heritage, you know. And in America, we as blacks will like down each other on how good we speak, but we're speaking English. There's nothing whiter than English. We're not in our native tongue, actually. So we judge each other on white goal lines, not based on exactly what our culture is based on.
So you can agree or you can disagree, but it's pretty clear that what you just heard is not the approved script. And famous people must read from the approved script or else the whole system falls apart, because then people might be encouraged to think for themselves. And once you do that, it's a chain reaction that winds up with disobedience. So someone like Kanye, now Ye West, must be controlled. So he was a little surprised to learn after his divorce that his former wife had, in fact, a close and secretive relation with the Clintons, and that they were working on her to influence him to read from the script. Pretty amazing. He was shocked by it, and so were we. That's next. First indication that West might become a massive problem for the industrial deception complex came in 2015 and 2016 when Donald Trump appeared. And West had a very strong gut reaction to Trump that was very positive, and the people around him were panicked by this. The last thing you could have is one of the most popular pop culture figures in America coming out for Donald Trump. So they applied intense pressure to get him back on the script, and apparently his wife was part of that, his former wife, Kim Kardashian, who West now learns had a very close relationship with the Clintons and people around the Clintons. He had no idea. His relationship with Trump, on the other hand, flourished, and he got a window into the people around Trump. And in this clip, you'll hear him assess what happened inside the White House. Very interesting. Watch.
It was interesting. A friend of mine told me that Chris and Kim had called him because he had influence inside of the black community, and had called him to say, to get him to influence people to take the vaccination. And I don't have opinion on that. I just want to state that as a flat statement. But it was wild that I didn't know how close my own wife was to the Clintons. I didn't know, I didn't realize it at the time.
That you were married to her.
And I was married to her.
How close was she to the Clintons?
I mean, cell phone away, or hey, tell Ye to say this away, or hey, go out and use your platform to push the vaccination away. I mean, not away, but take the away part, but
Do you feel like at times you were manipulated by political forces through your wife?
Attempt manipulation. But yes, there was some manipulation. Me not saying I like Trump was a form of a manipulation.
For sure.
Yeah.
Why did you like him, by the way? You said you liked him early, like you saw him.
I mean, I keep telling this joke. If people say Trump was the first black president, I'm going to be the first Latino president, because all the values, the conservative values just line up. Come on, man, Trump's the What do you mean? He has his own buildings. What are you talking about? He's like Ralph Lauren. Yeah. He made Ivanka.
You like Ivanka?
Yeah.
You wrote a post on Instagram about her husband today.
Yeah, I had a dinner with Ivanka, Jared, and Josh. And a couple days later, I found out that Josh Kushner had 10% of Skims, which is a line that I had developed with Kim. And I had a lot of issues with the imagery of Skims. I felt like there's a lot of imagery that was overly sexualized and things that I wouldn't want to see my wife and definitely not my daughters doing in the future in order to sell product. But it reaches another level when it's like, okay, well, this is what my wife is doing, and this is what she's doing for our children. But it reaches another level when her business partners are selling pieces of the company that they don't have to, because the company's already so successful and it's an internet-based company. So it's like they're really just selling off the company in order to create more relationships for themselves that are unneeded. It's like when I went to the Gap and with our release, they just they shoveled it out. I'm very cautious with my words. I'm really big on being able to have an adult conversation in front of the children. So I don't use explicit language in interviews especially. So I found out after this dinner that Josh Kushner had 10% of Skims and I had 5% of Skims. And regardless if, Josh Kushner figured out how to put $150 million, I'm sure it wasn't out of his own account, but $150 million, and I'm sure Jared still has a piece of that fund. Regardless of them putting that money in, for me to have been an owner in it and not known, just from a place as a creative where Skims is so based on a lot of the Yeezy ideas, then it's based on all of the relationships in fashion, because I had to use my relationships in fashion in order to establish Kim in a way where fashionable people would say, hey, I'm down to wear Kim's line. And these VCs, they come in and they get a piece of it after the fact, and they run around and say they have ownership in it. So as I put on my Instagram, which, luckily for everyone, they could just write it off that, I'm crazy until they see my disposition in this interview, and then it's going to get scary. I said, hey, Josh, what if I had 10% of Carly Kloss's lingerie, shapewear, swimsuit line, and you have 5% of it, and you didn't know? How would that make you feel? And then after talking to them and really sitting with Jared and sitting with Josh and finding out other pieces of information, I was like, wow, these guys might have really been holding Trump back and being very much a handler right then. They love to just look at me or look at Trump like we're so crazy and that they're the businessmen. So when I think about all of these things that Jared, somehow doesn't get enough credit for with his work, and what is it, his work in Israel or his work in Palestine? What is this? You know where he made these peace treaties? Where was that? Do you know the facts on this right here? So I'm like...
I think that was between Israel and some of the Arab nations.
I just think it was to make money. I don't know. Is that too heavy-handed to put on this platform?
No, that's your opinion. We're not in the censorship business.
Okay, thank you. And I just think that that's what they're about, is making money. I don't think that they have the ability to make anything on their own. I think they were born into money. And for me, as a maverick and a talent and a person that's been, beat, kicked, lost everything, said to have lost my mind, went from pull myself up by my boots don't have straps on them, but I say pull myself up from my boots to becoming a multi-billionaire that gets the price every year of my net worth goes down every year on Forbes. They just keep on slowly just taking it down every year. It's like really a weird thing. But as a person that has really built something from nothing, when I sit across the table from a Josh Kushner and he just feels so entitled to that idea, and this person has never brought anything of value other than so-called being a good venture capitalist, I have a major issue with that. And it makes me feel like they weren't serving my boy, Trump, the way we could have, because, Trump wanted nothing but the best for this country. And it doesn't, Moses stuttered. And saying God is not always going to bring the most perfect personality. A lot of times, the most fake people, their job is talking and making people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And the realest people are going to make you feel uncomfortable at first.
Yeah, that's not shallow. And it's also not crazy. It's true, whether you agree with it or not. So, West has thought a lot about politics, and he's thought a lot about what's going to happen in 2024. You'll hear that coming up. He's also very close to Elon Musk, which we didn't know. Asked him off the cuff, do you know Elon Musk? Oh, yes, very close. He's got a lot of thoughts on that, too. That's next. We told you at the top you'd be able to assess for yourself whether West is crazy, as virtually every single media outlet on planet Earth claims every day, all year long. Is he crazy? As you try to assess that, ask, is what you just heard over the past 40 minutes any crazier than what you see on television every day? The lies, the lunacy presented to you with a straight face as reality? No, it's not. It's not crazy at all. He's a big thinker, though. We asked him about 2024 and what he plans to do, and also about Elon Musk. Here it is.
People with power try to make other people feel like they don't have any. My power is through God. So if someone ever says anything like, oh, you did a great job, it's praise God. It's funny, atheists love the term narcissist when you believe in yourself.
Right.
They say that it's narcissistic. You know, I love the dynamic of how you compare, you show that there's still humanity even with the position that God has placed me in. Why did Moses smite the rock? Why did he get that frustrated? And just to be able to be gentle, to be more gentle. You know, God is alive. Look at this right here. Look at how quiet it is right now. It's only God. God is of order. The devil is of chaos.
That's true.
You know, we are, I want to talk about my potential run for 2024 and Trump's potential run for 2024 and the beloved DeSantis potential run for 2024 and Mayor Suarez potential run for 2024. And, you know, they thought Trump was a joke. For older white people, they're quick to classify a black person only by the fact that we're black. Even Trump, a person that's, you know, we'd consider to be a friend of mine, when I went to the White House, I called him after that to get A$AP Rocky out of jail. And one of the things he said to me is, you know, Kanye, you're my friend. When you came to the White House, my black approval rating went up 40%. And for politicians, all black people are worth is an approval rating. The Democrats feel that they don't owe us anything, and Republicans feel that they don't owe us anything. Blacks have never demanded something for our vote. And that's something I talked to Ice Cube about. What are we asking for? How do we change our life? If all of our organizations and all of our colleges and even our title as black was made by white people, all of our jobs, and Black Wall Street, Harlem after gentrification, there's never been a fully black-owned community where we have all the municipalities, things that Dr. Claude Anderson talks about. We need that. It's like 90% of America is not even developed. I'm not one of the people that go up and say, hey, I want to stop anybody from making money. The people that make money and the powers that be, I am your true Nikola Tesla. And I'm not even a scientist.
What do you think of Elon Musk? Do you know him?
Very well.
What's your take on him?
You said that because I said Tesla?
I did, yeah. It's just the first thing that popped.
And that everyone's always like, oh, Elon's got these answers. I think he's a great team player.
And there's a lot more to come, a lot more. And we address specifically, why do they call you crazy? And he says, as clearly as he possibly can, there were some things that were driving me crazy, and I've fixed them. Jason Whitlock, who knows a lot about all of this, joins us next to assess what we've just heard. We'll be right back.
My husband was serving on a deployment with the Army. We got a phone call from Frank Siller, burdened at that list.
It's amazing what the stakes are when a very famous person decides to speak his mind. Very famous people can't have free speech. That's not allowed. And West discovered that when he initially decided he kind of liked Donald Trump. Watch.
I never actually told people that I liked Trump when he was running because I was bullied by Hollywood. Because I stayed in Hollywood and people are like, think about your kids, and I'm trying to hold on to the marriage, so I'm just biting my tongue. Like, there's so many fathers and mothers that go to work every day and they're in a situation where they're biting their tongue because they think it will be better for their children.
That's right.
So even me in my position, I was biting my tongue on my political opinion because I thought it would be better for my children.
We've got a lot more on that and what it did to him as a man living through it tomorrow night. But first, our friend Jason Whitlock, the host of Fearless, joins us to assess what we just saw. Jason, what did you think of that?
Tucker, I thought a lot of things, and forgive me for doing this, but I'm going to unpack all of this on my show tomorrow. Find me at youtube.com/Jason Whitlock. But listen, that's a man wrestling with his faith in God and wrestling with the fame that makes him money and makes him rich. Right. And so throughout that interview tonight, I heard a guy that's a devout Christian, and I heard a guy that is cursed with the disease of fame. It's undermined his ability to be a good father. It's undermined his ability to be a good husband. It's undermined his happiness. He wants to be a Christian, and the things he said about his faith and just wearing the lanyard with the ultrasound, all of that. I love that about Kanye West. It scares the heck out of the left to see someone like Kanye West, that popular, that influential, his skin color, that has those Christian values, because that's what's really under attack, his Christian values. It scares them. They don't want him to survive. They're using him. I'm going to make an analogy. Kunta Kinte and Roots. They got him out on a tree and they're whipping him. What's your name? And they want him to say left-wing liberal, and he won't say it. He keeps saying, I like Trump. I like God. I'm a Christian. And they keep whipping and slashing him, and they're trying to make this man bow down to the liberal orthodoxy, and they're doing it as a message to me and everybody else. If you don't get in line with what we want you to think, every black man, every heterosexual black man, every black man with Christian values, we will beat you into a pulp. Kanye's man enough to stand up. I wish more men were.
What does that do to you, to discover that you can be one of the richest, most famous people in the world and you still don't have the simple right to say what you really think?
What it does to Kanye is make him realize the importance of God and his faith, because that's the only protection you have. Again, the guy used the words that I believe. This is demonic. Everything the left preaches to black people, you should be overweight. You should kill your babies in the womb. You should embrace a negative culture that teaches you to kill each other and disrespect each other. It's a death culture. It's a genocide. It's demonic, just like Kanye West said. I hope he wins his battle with fame, because if he does, he's a very important voice, Tucker.
How can you say you respect someone or a group of people if you don't allow them to reach their own conclusions about the world around them? If you respect a man, you let him say his piece and you listen respectfully.
It's clear as day the left doesn't respect black people. We're being used as pawns in their demonic game that they're playing. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it's just factual. It's a death culture. It's hostile to Christian values. You have to throw them all out in order to serve their political movement. You have to be pro-abortion. You have to believe in the matriarchy and the disruption of the nuclear family. If you're a person of faith, black, white, whatever, if you understand a biblical worldview, family is at the heart of all of it. And that's why Kanye is so devastated, because his family has been destroyed. His wife is eating from the forbidden fruit of feminism, the matriarchy, and the left's demonic culture. His family has been destroyed. Any person with just a layman's understanding of faith, of Christian faith, the family's at the heart of the structure. That's what God designed. This man's family's been ripped apart because his wife won't buy into his vision. She's been influenced by the Clintons and the Democratic left. These people have all been bought and paid for. This man is paying a heck of a price. I'm very proud of him. So I go back and forth sometimes on Kanye because, again, he's struggling with fame, and he'll do some things that are inconsistent with his Christian values. But overall, is Kanye trying to be a force for good? Absolutely.
Yeah, he is, which counts. Jason Whitlock, thank you for that. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. So last night we showed you clips from an interview we did with Ye, previously known as Kanye West. Now, last week he was at the Paris Fashion Week and unveiled a shirt that said White Lives Matter. And of course, much outrage ensued, and he was roundly denounced as insane. Virtually no one asked him why he did that. So we thought before dismissing him as a mental patient, it might be worth hearing his side of the story. Just listen to him. So we came out to LA, booked a 30-minute interview with West, which quickly morphed into a 2-hour interview. And we're so grateful that it did, because one of the most interesting, deep, and provocative conversations we've ever watched. Everybody thought that. Guys operating the cameras thought that. It really was fascinating, whether you agree or not. So, among many other things, West gave us his assessment of Barack Obama, whom he knows well and has known well for many years, even before he became president. Here's what he said. Do you talk to Obama still?
I was Obama's favorite artist. He actually met with me. Obama met with me and my mama to say that he was running for office back in 2008. And that he wanted the support. And everybody was so into this idea of the black president. And you were always cool. And it's also like, you know, how many of us are there? You know, Obama level, Ye level, you know, Virgil level, just black, you know, so brilliant that we cut through all of the lines of racism. Like, you just can't get rid of us. Nat King Cole level, Dave Chappelle level. So in some place we'd have to be friends and get along, because it's like, yo, you're at that level. You're like a, you know, Formula One Lewis Hamilton race car driver. We're still driving a white car, but we're the best race car drivers that ever existed. And that was me and Obama's connection. But soon as I wasn't saying the things that I was supposed to say as a rapper, our connection faded.
So you don't talk to him anymore?
I'll talk to him if I see him.
Yep.
But I guarantee you he see me. I didn't even know that, man. I just thought that sounded cool. One idea that was in my head about 3 minutes ago that I really want to say is that's really interesting about the when companies get the BLM managers.
What's a BLM manager?
Black Lives Matter office manager. It's basically you get a semi-influential black person to become the face of a white company.
Yeah.
Right. So that means, like, in the design world, in the art world, they actually would pick artists that were less talented than other artists based on their influence, not based on their actual work, because everyone is vying for influence and an opinion. Everyone is afraid of losing their opinion. So with Nike, right? Nike is as famous as, you say Nike's more famous than PayPal, right?
Yeah.
Right. What number company do you think PayPal is?
I don't know.
Number 4.
Overall?
Overall, you got, well, you know what the number 1 is, right? It's Apple.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting number 2, but number 3 is McDonald's. Then SpaceX is maybe 6 or 7. It's really interesting that as lit as Elon is, his previous company is actually still worth more than SpaceX. So what number company do you think Nike is, the Nike? Number 321. It's not there to be as big a financial company as it can be. It's there as an influencer because black people love Nike. So Nike is like a company that is redlining and gerrymandering black people. So the reason why Gap wanted me to go to Gap, it wasn't based on, oh, we need to get our stocks up. You know, it's like these companies, when they've been around for a long time, Gap's not like, they're like, we're in the rag trade, we're never gonna be Apple. And everyone, all of these American companies somehow took this deal where they start putting in these really awkward, weird number kind of CEOs. Like Nike's got one, the Gap had one, it didn't work out. And there's all of these weird operators inside of companies, even in Balenciaga, you know. They're just there for control. Steve Jobs talked about it. It's the most important thing you can have is control. Look at me, all the money, all the influence, and I have to act a complete ass to have any say-so of anything that my children are doing because that group of people have control and say-so over all the children inside of the clan. So that's what these companies are set up for. That's the type of CEOs they're hiring, especially when the founders are out of there. They kind of just give the companies up to a bunch of people, and they're all in cahoots. Like anyone that ever worked with me, they just look at, oh, who's yay farming for talent that we can hire to be our new BLM office manager. Like, kind of like Obama.
What do you think of Obama as a BLM office manager?
Best one ever.
Yeah.
Best one ever. And you know, I think Obama, just like Virgil, these people were truly black to their core and truly brilliant to their core. But they went into situations thinking that they could do it the white way as a black man. And we saw what color Obama's hair was when he went in, and we saw what color it was when he went out. You know, Virgil lost all his hair, you know, and eventually passed away. So when I have techniques that are revolutionary, if I raise my voice, if I express myself on Instagram, it's a colonic. And people can say, oh, this what you're doing is toxic. If what I'm saying is toxic, I gotta do everything to get it out of my body. And there'll be times where I see a level of like oppression, Parisian proper, like next level, you know, France owns 80% of African banks level colonization, oppression. And I'll be like, I'm not going to let you guys kill me. But one thing that has to really happen, say if Trump ran, right? We're not just gonna be black influence. We're gonna be vision and creativity. We've gotta rethink who we are as a species. Right now, we practice killing ourselves every day. Like murder is legal in America, you know.
And abortion.
Yes. So whoever gets the position needs to listen to the vision. I didn't know it was gonna rhyme when I first started. They need to have Elon, they need to have me. You should start with those two, and then we'll get to the rest of them. We could pull in a Johnny Ives, we'll pull in all of our living, super brilliant people. And we need to analyze and not just sell out for the cash. Like these Fortune 500 companies, they're just selling out for the cash. And put God first, and the best representation of God is the children is the extension of the family. Put the families first. There's so many things, suburbs. The train tracks being ripped up by GM just for capitalism. All these ideas that we have, we're now living in a place where we're the orphans of capitalism, and we just have to take a pause and rethink how we can have the most beautiful existence possible for our children, for the kids, and we're all kids. Yeah. We're all God's kids. We're all sons of Abraham.
So as we said, this interview went almost 2 hours, and not a moment of it was boring, at least from our perspective. We can see if you agree coming up next. Story, yay, one of the first words to appear, and in fact a word that appears in virtually every story, is crazy or mentally ill or bipolar or struggling with mental illness, etc., etc. The theme is always the same. The guy's a nut. Don't listen to him. And of course, we're suspicious of that because through history, in the Soviet Union, for example, claims of mental illness were always a way to make dissident voices be quiet. Don't listen, he's a lunatic. And so we asked Ye directly about this, about his very public struggles with manic behavior, but his hospitalization for exhaustion. And he gave a remarkable answer, and a believable one. And he said, "The life I was being forced to live was driving me crazy. I had achieved fame and fortune, and yet I was still not allowed to express what I really believed. That diminished me, and it drove me nuts. And by the way, my marriage was falling apart, and those two facts were interconnected." Listen to him describe the effect on him as a man, not just on his mental health, but on his dignity, of being told he couldn't say what he really thought.
It drove me crazy to not be able to say that I like Trump. Because think about it, it's me. Imagine me not being able to say what I wanted. What was the point of being famous? What was the point of having, millions of people love your music? What was the point of having a voice if you can't even use your own voice and connect it to your own opinions?
Yes.
That's where the disconnect happened. That's where the, quote, I think wrongly diagnosed, that's where the bipolarity is. Because you got something you're thinking, but you're told you're not allowed to say it in public. Well, I never actually told people that I liked Trump when he was running because I was bullied by Hollywood. Because I stayed in Hollywood and people were like, think about your kids, and I'm trying to hold on to the marriage, so I'm just biting my tongue. Like there's so many fathers and mothers that go to work every day and they're in a situation where they're biting their tongue because they think it will be better for their children.
That's right.
So even me in my position, I was biting my tongue on my political opinion because I thought it would be better for my children. And now you look up and my kids are going to a school that teaches black kids a complicated Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa doesn't, so they don't teach even Christmas itself, Christ Mass. They don't teach it at Sierra Canyon. And what they do is take all of the celebrities, the actors, the basketball players, and they throw them in this one school and they indoctrinate the kids. So my son's psalm is brilliant. So right now, they're looking to figure out how to indoctrinate him to make him be another part of the system. I have a choir at my school. So right now, we've come to a compromise, but I'm not finished because I don't compromise. But we come to a compromise when my kids go to my school after school and they learn choir. I sat there with my son, and he came and he said, "Why do I need to sing? I don't even go to your school." So imagine the 16-year-old version of that guy, the 26-year-old version of that guy, where the father doesn't have say-so of what the kids are watching, what the kids are wearing, what the kids are eating, who the kids are hanging out with. Ray Kurzweil said, "We have the information needed to have a human utopia, but we're led by the least noble, most greedy people." There's a solution that can bring happiness to so many more people. I even had this idea about, the connection of big pharma to farms by having localized farms. With more localized farms, you can use less pesticides. If you have less pesticides, then you have less diseases. And have big pharma invest in the local farms, and they'll actually make more money. I'm not one of the people that go up and say, "Hey, I want to stop anybody from making money." The people that make money and the powers that be, I am your true Nikola Tesla. And I'm not even a scientist.
What do you think of Elon Musk? Do you know him?
Very well.
What's your take on him?
You said that because I said Tesla?
I did, yeah. It's just the first thing that popped.
And that everyone's always like, "Oh, Elon's got these answers." I think he's a great team player. Like I said about Ray Kurzweil and Utopia. In Rome, they would bring all the most brilliant people and have them sit down to the point where their seats had a toilet in them. Like, people would not even get up to use the bathroom. And they would ideate about what society needed. And they'd invent new things, and they'd put it all up on the wall. And Donda, before it was a school, is a design firm. And what I would do is pull together all my favorite thinkers, and we'd invent. That's why I was happy that you saw two of the inventions right there. Because now it's like, if I had said that before you drank the coffee, and some might joke and say you're drinking the Kool-Aid, but before you drank the coffee and before you saw the 3D printed boot, zero waste 3D printed boot, if I said Nikola Tesla, you'd probably, you could have smugged that off. I think it's insane for an administration to not use a talent like Elon Musk more. Like, if I was in or once I am, I will eventually be president before, in my lifetime. But if I was in office right now, I'd be calling Elon every day. I'd have him sleeping in the White House. I'd say, how do we use our platform as the most influential, that's a Freudian slip, the most influential country in the world, to show the rest of the world how to live a simplified life. But our country is under attack, and media and industries outside of our country are doing anything to keep it as it was. And everyone's just afraid. God is love. And I understand I come off scary sometimes because I'm like, I'm going to protect my kids. I'm going to protect my reputation. I'm going to protect my brand. And there's times when you have to pull the guns out. You have to pull the swords out. You have to have righteous indignation as a Christian. For everyone that ever said, I can't get mad because I'm a Christian. As a Christian, it's like, yeah.
I don't understand how you can work and be so successful and influential in the music business and the fashion industry, the two most liberal businesses probably in the world, as a professing Christian with a pro-life badge on. How does that work?
I always think, whenever God allows a brilliant idea to channel through me and allows me to somehow, take credit for it, I always snicker at the fact that with the liberals, their main tool is, you know, that they use are artists and influencers, right? But then God has the #1 artist and the #1 influencer as a conservative. So I always chuckle at that. Every time I come up with some brilliant, I'm like, could you imagine if, you know, they could have just indoctrinated Ye? You know, the world could have just totally been ran into the hole. And there's battles that the devil had won, but the devil's a defeated foe. Like, for me to have gone from Jesus walks to you're such a hoe, I love it, you know, that's that deviation from the path. So, I mean, I love that question because I really, every time, it just tickles me, you know, like that the very thing that liberals use the most of, they don't have the best person at it.
I mean, do you talk to other people in your business, you know, who are successful in the music industry, the fashion business, who secretly agree with you?
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of fashion people. I mean, Tommy Hilfiger loved Trump. Let me see who are, I got to think of all the other Trump. I'm not even going to use the term Trump supporter,
right? Because
that's, why don't people say Hillary supporter or Biden supporter? This is just, you know, yeah, there's a lot of people. You know what? You know, people in my business who love Trump, businessmen, people who love money.
Yeah.
You know, people who love money, people who actually like being successful, and, you know, and not ran into the ground. Like, those are some of the people.
Ask West any question about virtually anything, and the conversation moves back to his faith in God, which is clearly foundational and is driving his transformation from a pop star to what he hopes to become, which is a spiritual leader. He explained it in this clip. What's your prayer life like? Do you pray a lot?
This is a prayer. We're in constant prayer. I thought Hail Mary came to me, not in a Catholic way, but more like in a Tupac way, like, come with me, Hail Mary, I'm gonna run quick, see, what do we have here now? Do you wanna ride or die? Na, 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 na. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
It's like a Negro spiritual. It's a chant. It is, you know, it puts you in that mode. I got a song that I made. It was like a mix, it was a hybrid of that and Led Zeppelin. And it goes, it's like my best song. La, 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 wait till I get my money right. La, 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 then you can't tell me nothing, right? And people, I mean, I can open up this stuff. I can open up tours with this song. I wanted to point out this hybrid. You know, it's like if you see Zombie 1, Zombieland 1 and Zombieland 2, or Terminators, anything, they always make the characters a little bit badder in the next generations, next generation. So that's, you know, Kim is like a hybrid. She's not just Marilyn Monroe. You know, she's also a fashion person. She's also a mom. She's also an activist. She's a lawyer. She's a multi-billionaire. She's hot. She's one of the most beautiful people of all time. You know, this is a different level of video game character now. And when you see a headline that says, Kim says, oh, I'm gonna stay single forever, that's the indoctrination. Like, because they want this person to tell all the little girls out there that they need to be single forever. You know, all moms, I know there's definitely people who watch this show.
Do you think that? So you don't think that's an organic, natural thing? I mean, that is a message that she is being used to send.
Absolutely. Think about the song, Don't Talk About Bruno, no, 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 which already sounds weird, like it's, you know, talking about like an uncle or something that did something wrong if they say, don't talk about Bruno, right? But in the song, listen to the lyrics, it says, the man of my dreams will be slightly out my reach. And I just see my kids running around, and I see these things, but you know, the thing about, for the execs at Disney that are studying everything I'm doing or saying, trying to figure out how to connect with 15-year-olds, and that's why Bernard Arnault, buys Supreme, and instead of putting a true skater designer, they put like a BLM manager as the head of Supreme, because Supreme has an impact with the 15-year-olds. For the Disney guys, you might not believe in God, but God believes in you. It's not a battle you can win. It's like, don't jump, Anakin, I have the higher ground kind of situation. So you could put out all of the indoctrinations and, moves and have the biggest media company, but why am I alive? Why am I protected? Why did I become the richest black man of all time? Like, how did that happen? And the more and more I lean into God and work for God, the more wins God is going to bestow on our team, on Jesus Gang. And for me to go out and just state an obvious and empathetic statement in the middle of the most liberal central, that was like Tiananmen Square or something, right? I was like, with Candace Owens, and we both wore the shirt at the same time. We got some Jesus soldiers out here, and people say they're willing to die for it, but we live for it. We're living for the battle. And what's the battle for? Life itself, our children. They're killing us through the food. They're killing us through the content. They're killing us through the programming. But God is alive, and is alive in all of us, and we will overcome.
It sounds like you're hopeful for the future of the country.
Absolutely, because I have the vision for it. I understand the ecosystem. I understand how to even liberate a big pharma. I have solutions for the future. I don't have the entire vision. Certain things are just in front of me and they happen when they're supposed to happen. But there's so many open doors. Like, we have this concept, this is put on my heart, the idea of a monastery, or I call it the Dondastery, which takes the different disciplines and blends them together. And in the Dondastery, we have proper baby health care. And I'm sure there's a higher, actually when I met with Gabby, she had a really, really good term for this. And so many people bring their babies to the hospital, not just black people, and the doctors mess up. And they're like, oh, there's been some complications. So to be able to have incredible nurses. I was very specific about saying nurses instead of saying doctor too. I don't believe you need a doctor, and I'm not a doctor, but a nurse. It's possible, to have a successful childbirth. And so that's the first thing we provide: shelter. We won't turn anyone away. Food, clothing, high-end curriculum, and vocational curriculum, farming, carpentry, automotive, computer, software, and hardware. So it becomes a new place where someone can lay the baby on their steps and say, hey, the situation I'm in, I don't have enough money for another kid. I don't have the time. I don't have the room in my house. I just don't have the resources. And every day for the past 2 months, I've been walking by this Planned Parenthood, and I'm thinking about stopping in because I just can't have this baby. And what I'm doing is saying, hey, well, let's put a place just across the street from the Planned Parenthoods and say, this is a place that when you decide to have your child, this child can have the best opportunity at life.
Do you think this society discourages parental involvement, parental influence over the children?
I mean, society is like a big term. You mean
It is. Well, you had said that your father was discouraged from, being in your household, and you have been discouraged from being in your children's lives.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a thing that happens to a lot of people in America, to a lot of men?
Absolutely. And a lot of men deal with a mother and the baby mama and the mother-in-law ganging up to take the child away.
Yeah.
And not wanting to give the dad his say-so. Like, there was even a moment where we were arguing about North's basketball coach, and I had to say, like, I went from not making a basketball team in 8th grade to winning championships in 9th grade by practicing every day. And North likes basketball, and I'm going to come and practice with her every day. I'm also going to pick the other coaches that work with her. And now that she's back playing basketball, this is the most confident person in the league. She's like the Dennis Rodman. And when North snatches the ball out of a girl twice her size, and she comes over to the side, I tell her, don't let anyone take anything from you ever. Don't let anyone take anything from our family. Don't let anyone take our company. Always protect your brothers and sisters.
More from that interview coming up.